Heyo, bad boys. Welcome back to Normies Like Us, the podcast that reminds you it's hip to be square. On today's episode, we're coming to you live from the Bat Cave as we're firing up the bat signal and talking all about the Caped Crusader, the masked manhunter, the world's greatest detective, Gotham's greatest defender, the one and only, the goddamn Batman.
I'm Batman.
Why so serious? You ever danced with the devil and pay my money?
It would be extremely painful.
True. Owe your life to dental hygiene.
Swear to me! I am Batman!
Welcome back, Normies. I'm Joe.
Hey, it's Colin.
This is Mike.
And it's Jacob.
That's right. We're joined by special guest Jacob once again.
Back
How you doing?
at it again.
What up, Jacob? Happy to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
And today's special episode, we'll be talking all about one of my favorite heroes, the Batman.
Yeah, you're wearing the shirt right now, Joe.
Yeah, this one actually is from the animated series. I've had it since I was 15 years old and still wearing
Same
it.
shirt. Nice,
Kind of
man.
the skinny Batman, not necessarily the fat Bat that you see Ben Affleck rocking now, if we'll ever see him in it again.
He's got a thick neck, the new Bat.
Yeah, no, this is Bruce Timm back in the day.
Yeah, I like it. Very cool.
Yep. Hey, real quickly, I want to ask you guys what you've been watching, what you've been reading, and what you've been playing. Anything that you've checked out, movies, games,
Doing
comics,
a little
what's going on?
check-in post-Comic-Con here. I like that. Jacob, you're our guest here. What you been watching? What you been reading? What you been...
Playing.
I did not prepare for this.
Well, if you watched anything, prepared.
It's just
Any
a question,
trailers you
man.
like coming out of Comic-Con?
It's not a test.
Out of Comic-Con specifically, I'm trying to think now. What do you...
We had Aquaman, we had, Shazam.
Aquaman looks okay. Shazam looks pretty good. Glass looks good. I saw this other trailer for this, this is more like an Oscar type trailer, but it's about Oscar Isaac is hunting for
Nazi
Adolf
hunter.
Eichmann, and Ben Kingsley's in it. That looked pretty good.
You been playing anything? Any games?
Oh yeah, well I've been playing a little bit of The Witcher 3.
Still on that Witcher kick
kick.
from the
Bethesda
Bethesda.
Check it
episode.
out, folks. Listen to that Bethesda episode.
Yeah, I haven't played it much recently because I've just been busy, but it's very fun. I'm about
How's your Gwent hand?
Gwent. I'm great at Gwent. I could probably
Merc some
Gwent Master.
noobs.
There you go.
It's Meduski.
and then
That's pretty much it.
pretty much I saw Justice League for the first time and
There we
Wonder
go.
Woman for the first time.
That's right.
those
You
on
did
HBO?
a bit of a DCEU watch through. They're all on HBO now.
They're on HBO. I thought Wonder Woman was pretty great, and I thought Justice League was pretty
Exactly the
shit.
same.
That's
Also
it.
pretty
Justice
great.
League is pretty great.
Justice great, yeah.
Well, Justice.
No, you
great.
said shit.
Yeah, it was pretty shitty, but I mean, it wasn't as bad as Batman versus Superman or Suicide Squad or Man of Steel, really. So it was the second best movie in the DC cinematic universe so far, which is
Boy,
a low
batting
bar.
1,000, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, tease it for a little bit later, but how did you think they portrayed Batman in that film?
in Justice League,
Yeah.
I liked him. Yeah, I think I liked it better than how they portrayed him in Batman versus Superman. I felt he felt a little more human to me, whereas in
There you go.
Do you
Batman versus
bleed?
Superman, he was just a psycho.
Yeah, he's a little more lived in now.
Yeah.
We're getting
Yeah.
back to what I'd hope we'd see more of in the future. But we'll talk about that
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
get to the movies section.
Well, can I say what I'm watching,
Yeah.
guys? Something I've probably watched about 50 times here now. It's the new Godzilla King of Monsters.
Oh, hell yeah.
I am
Hey.
obsessed with this.
I'm on
thing.
board.
Claire de Lune, I love that song. It's beautiful. It's elegant. It's set to monsters shooting colors in the sky, baby, and it's never looked fucking better. And I am fucking stoked for that film.
I'm with you there. I'm a big Godzilla fan. I had the original Rodan VHS tape, his
Ooh, a
standalone
Toho
film.
fan.
Exactly.
I love that, sir.
Love it.
And this looks like it's going to be a real return to form for monster movies. I mean, it's not the first one where you just get Godzilla at the end. This is going to be a big old fight featuring them all.
Oh, yeah, dude. And you know what I was thinking about the other day? I would love to invent a genre of film. Like monsters battling cities was just something a guy created
kaiju,
one day.
right.
Exactly. The kaiju type film, Toho Productions just came up with one day, and they still make those types of movies. Making a zombie film, something like that. What do you do? What's the new thing?
Yeah, new genres. That's crazy. I'm very excited, though. For the original King of Monsters was King Ghidorah, and then Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla have to stop him, and it looks like we're going down that
Right.
road stoked.
Got all of them.
Yeah, I wonder.
And I wanted to add that everyone was talking about all the monsters in the trailer. which I liked, but I also thought that the human cast looked really good, and
Oh
they cast
my
a lot
God,
of.
yes.
It's like they added all of my favorite TV actors from different TV shows.
Are finally making it into a big
now they're
movie
all in
here.
a big movie, and they even had Tywin Lannister at the end saying, "Long live the king." Which
Charles Dance.
I think maybe they
Long
just
live
hired him
the
just to say
king.
that line.
A little bit of a rumor going on right now that he might be Tom Hiddleston's character from Kong Skull Island.
Oh,
Aged
interesting.
up
I
in the
could see
future.
that. Yeah,
I
that'd be
would really
good.
like that.
Makes sense.
I liked. I caught that recently on HBO as well for the first time. The Kong Skull Island, and I'll tell you, under a certain lens, I think it's a lot of fun.
Oh,
John C. Reilly's great in it.
Yeah,
Couldn't-
it's such
that's
a
something you gotta
weird,
see on a-
weird
I
movie.
thought it was pretty good.
Dude.
I like
Yeah.
the Peter Jackson. I know most people aren't huge
I love
fans
that
of
one.
Peter Jackson.
I do
Actually,
like
It's
that movie.
bloated though. It's bloated. It needs to be
It
trimmed.
is bloated.
Bloated, but it's a real love letter to the genre.
Well,
really
and
is.
you have said, Jacob, that on your tombstone you want "It was beauty that killed the beast."
Yeah.
That's right. And
Yeah.
quoted Jack Black.
Just Jack
Not the
Black.
character.
Hell yeah,
Yep,
Jack
just
Black.
Jack Black.
Anything else, Colin, you've seen that's interesting?
No, not too much. How about you guys? What you watching? What you playing? What you reading?
I am on a huge Star Trek kick right
Oh,
now.
I love it.
I like hearing that, Joe.
Yeah, I'm watching Deep Space Nine. I'll tell you, I was a huge fan of The Next Generation. Deep Space Nine took 3 or 4 seasons to really get into. Now I can't turn it off. I mean, I'm tearing through seasons in 2 days.
Let me ask you this: for modern people watching, are you done with Discovery? Have you watched that? Are you waiting to watch it till you finish up?
Discovery's
Space
on
Nine?
break right now.
Okay.
Season 2 comes back probably in a couple months.
Yeah.
We should do a Star Trek episode around that time.
That's true.
But Deep Space Nine has been great, and I've been supplementing that with the first season of The Orville, which is
The Orville.
so fun. I mean,
gotta
it
play
is,
Big fan of that show, yeah.
which is on Hulu. I wish I could have watched it live. We have 2 episodes left in season 1. It'll be coming back in the fall as well. But it's great. I mean, it's so much like TNG.
Oh, yeah, it's a love letter to TNG, really.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. And then I just downloaded and started building out characters in Star Trek Online.
Oh,
so
wow.
So
I
you
am
really are getting the full
I
experience.
got
yeah,
it.
the whole way through. And then comics, I'm reading the current Batman run, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And Dan Slott's back on Spider-Man. There's the brand
very
new
cool.
Tessy Coates, Captain America, which I'm loving. That's about it. In terms of Comic-Con, super excited for Godzilla. I thought Shazam looked incredible.
Yeah.
I liked
Really
Wonder Woman.
captured ya.
But Shazam, I think is going to be their first movie. I mean, that's a slam dunk. It is
Kinda
Superman
looks like
meets
their-
Big.
It's their Ant-Man to me, where it's kind of more. It's comedy. It's an action comedy.
And it looks the
little more
budget's a little
family
lower
friendly.
too. So
It
if
is. It looks a
blows
little more
up,
natural.
They can
Oh,
recoup
it's
a lot
such
of money.
palate cleanser, though.
I think it's a real palate cleanser, Colin, and a real return to form for what they're looking for. It's gonna be, it's gonna make comic movies fun again for DC.
Aquaman feels like we were already working on this. We just have to commit.
Yeah,
And
you
Shazam
can't go
feels
back.
like now we're gonna do different taste.
Aquaman's a shit for me, not a hit.
Yeah, I'll probably roll with that. But
I'll watch it, but
it looks. Hey, they got sharks with lasers on them.
True.
So.
Frickin'
oh,
lasers
and
on
Black
there.
Manta looked really.
I
good.
thought Black
looks
Manta looked
awesome,
really
honestly.
cool, yeah.
And I
Just
never
like
cared
a
about
comic
him.
version of him.
He
Yeah.
looks a lot
Yeah,
like
but
him.
everybody keeps saying that, and I totally agree with you guys. But what is it? It's just a guy wearing hockey pads and a goofy helmet. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's
I'm not
just-
wearing
it's
hockey pads.
It's so accurate. Sure, that's an easy look to pull off in my mind. But I'm glad that they're doing it right.
It's easy, but it would have been easy to change it up and make it something, different and more modern. I'm glad they're keeping that classic comic look. And Shazam's costume looks incredibly
talk about
classic.
that.
Very
fun.
cool.
Yeah. Well, if I can go real quick, I've been still playing the Dark Souls remaster, same old thing,
Mike,
just-
did we talk about last time? What platform are you playing that on?
I'm playing it on PS4 because my
Okay.
cousins play on console too, so we'll team up and
you
stuff.
can hook up a bit on that.
Yeah, same thing, just smashing bosses with a big stick, nothing new there. And then I watched The Incredibles 2 recently, and I thought it was very, very fun. To stay on today's superhero theme, they don't wear capes though because their costume designer is
No
very
capes.
no capes. But that's it. That's what I've seen recently.
But when was the last time you
Incredibles
watched
2.
the first one? I mean, it's
14
10
years ago.
14 years apart.
I watched the
Exactly.
first one
That's such a gamble
over
in my mind.
4th of July weekend. I watched
Oh,
the first
wow.
one again. Yeah.
This feels like a proper evolution. It's different enough. It's a worthy successor. It's not a retread of the first movie like a lot of sequels are. I recommend Incredibles 2, and that's it. I liked it above Jurassic World and Ant-Man 2, which I saw recently as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
It's
I
my
would
favorite
say
of the
so.
three. So
I
it's,
haven't seen any of those
yeah.
yet.
Well, I
Yeah,
recommend
I'm really far behind in terms of movies. I got to get on it.
catch
In my
Jurassic
mind,
World
you
on
guys aren't
TV
missing
just for
out.
fun.
Not missing out, but still, there's stuff I want to catch up on.
The last movie I saw in theaters was Infinity War. So.
Ooh, and
Wow,
guys,
it's
not
been
to
a
bring
minute,
up
yeah.
a different franchise, but comes to Blu-ray today.
Oh, is
Weird.
that coming in HBO or Netflix or something too?
No,
It'll end up on Netflix
eventually,
eventually,
but
yeah,
I think
because of
that'll
that
take a
Disney
while.
deal.
We still don't have Black Panther yet. That's the next
True.
slated up in the middle of August.
All right.
Which
well,
is, that's still pretty good. I mean, in terms of getting there. That movie came out in February. By August, you can watch it online. That's fair to me.
Yeah, I like it.
I guess so. Well, that's what we've been watching, what we've been playing, what we've been reading. Let's get back to the Caped Crusader, though. This is what we're here for, right? Batman.
That's right. And specifically, we're going to start off talking comics.
Comics.
Yes.
No, we're gonna do that for every single one of these, Jacob. You just committed
Do
to
the
that
Christian
voice.
Bale. Yeah, do the
Yeah.
Christian Bale voice.
So Batman is obviously one of the biggest superheroes of all time. He got his start in the comic books in 1939
Wow.
with his first appearance in Detective Comics number 27. Have you guys ever read that first issue?
I have never read that first issue. What's it like? Colin, you read it?
Oh, I have. It's ridiculous.
It's much different.
Yeah, everything you think of Batman is not in that book.
Really? Not the ultimate detective stuff? None of the gadgets? Or
Well, it is called Detective Comics.
Oh,
Yeah.
for those
Some
who
of the
don't
detective
know, that's
elements,
what
sure.
DC stands
Yeah,
for.
and I've always found that funny because, and I'll argue it later, do you guys think we've ever gotten a film that really explores what a great detective he
Well,
is?
the Christopher
No.
Nolan.
The Mask of the
movies to a
Phantasm.
degree.
Yeah, sure. But again,
Maybe
we're diving
Mask of
into the
Phantasm.
movies here.
The Christian Bale films, I would say, and we'll talk about it in a minute, get too much towards like, this is what was going on. It's all a
Right.
terrorist plot. That's not so much like a small scale. I'm trying to solve this murder.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
They don't
find
really
these
play up like the
clues.
Sherlock Holmes
It's
or
corporate
Arkham games do all of
espionage.
that.
He's also very
Exactly.
intelligent on top of his gadgets and
Oh, sure. So we get the classic first look, of course. Guys, the bat breaks through the window. I would love to fucking see that in a movie. We have not seen it yet. We see, oh my God, it's a creature. It inspires fear. I'll use that to inspire fear in the heart of Miami's. We get the montage of him lifting up old-timey barbells, mixing chemicals. That's how we know he is strong. He is smart. Flipping people in a karate outfit. Batman is the man who can do anything.
Yeah, and that's all stuff that came from Frank Miller's Batman Year One, which was just a retelling of his first year out there. I think as a character, Batman is probably one of the most iconic out there. I mean, everyone from ages 3 and up know who Batman is and what he's all about.
that's why you can get like Bat Dad, because the kids know who Batman is even at a young age, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so let me hit you guys with this question first. What's your experience? What's your background with Batman? And of course, my overall question, how many years in a row did you go as him for Halloween? Jacob, we'll throw it to you as the guest first.
Well, first of all, I actually have a picture of this, but basically my older brother was Batman, and he wouldn't let me be Batman, so I had to be Superman.
Oh, cool.
So no, it's not cool because Superman sucks. And Batman
that's
is
right.
cool.
That's true.
I'm surprised you weren't made to be the Robin.
That
No,
would be,
I guess I don't know. Maybe we didn't have a Robin costume, but
I like Robin. That's one thing we'll get into here in a bit. Robin is a great character.
It's not a
I
punishment.
like. I like Robin. I mean, well, we'll get into it later. I love Batman though. He's one of my favorite, if not my favorite superhero.
Wow.
I'm not a big comics guy. I don't read comics normally, but I like his other media appearances, such as movies and television shows. So
you've been a fan since you were a kid?
yeah. I grew up watching, Batman animated series, and then after that, it was like Justice League Unlimited, like all that stuff. So Batman Beyond.
Yeah, he was an
Yeah.
incredible presence when we were younger.
yeah, definitely.
How about you, Mike? History, background, growing up?
Yeah, I first remember being exposed to the animated series, and I do remember for some reason my dad had some recorded episodes of the Adam West version.
The 66?
Yeah, so
Another
I remember
great
seeing
show.
old 60 with the POW overlays and everything. I remember seeing those, thinking they were very strange, but I was a kid, so it was fun. And yeah, other than that, I watched Batman Beyond, the animated series, obviously, like I just said. Didn't read the comics too much, but Batman was around. I remember my dad recorded most movies off the movie channel, but he actually owned the VHS of '89 Batman, and I remember
that
watching that
important.
as
Tim
well.
Burton's classic.
He at least had that owned tape. So I remember just that classic cover, all black with the Batman logo, gold outline. That's
yeah,
the
are you
VHS
kidding?
case. Oh, it's great. So that's pretty much my introduction to Batman. And then I've seen the Christopher Nolan movies and played some of the games and Injustice, the fighting game, things like that. So that's my Batman lead up. How about Colin?
Oh, I'll tell you guys right now, and this will blow your mind. I was born in 1989. That is the year of the release of the first Tim Burton film. The first film I ever saw in theaters, 1991, Batman Returns.
Really?
My father took us to a matinee. I mean, that film, is it PG-13? Joe, is
I
it
have to
R?
say, that movie gave me
it is
legit
PG.
Yeah.
nightmares when I was a kid.
It is PG?
It is
It
terrifying
is PG, yeah.
and dark.
We'll talk about it a bit in the movies section when we get there, but Tim
Danny
Burton
DeVito.
actually wasn't allowed to make the
movie.
third movie because Warner Brothers just thought Batman Returns was too dark.
It's some
we
nightmare
have to
feel,
move
for real.
away
Like,
from
it's
that.
nightmare
Oh
feel.
my God.
Yeah.
So takes me to a matinee, me and my brother, obviously too young to enjoy that film. He thinks we'll just go when nobody else is seeing it. I remember seeing this film at 2 years old, running around in the front row. The only thing distinctly I recall is that opening where Cobblepot Penguin is ditched in a cradle, thrown into
By
a
Pee Wee
river.
Herman.
And I, of course, did not find out till much later that it was Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman playing the father. I mean, it is such a mind fuck. And from then, I've loved Batman a lot. I'll say this flat out now. You guys all said fuck Superman. The stance I want to bring to this podcast is I think young people like Batman because he represents everything you could be, everything you aren't. I think older people like Superman, and I think I've grown into liking Superman more than Batman because he kind of represents everything you want to be much more now as an adult. You know, a stable man with a family. When you're younger, the loner vigilante billionaire playboy, yeah, that makes sense to you. But a stable job farmer who's got the powers of a god, that makes sense to me.
With a
I
lot
don't know
of
about that. I
downtime.
still have
No?
to go for the first one over
Really?
being a stable farmer.
Well, and we'll talk.
All right,
we'll talk
Edgelord.
more as we get into it about how the character has evolved over the years from kind of the vigilante loner into the Bat family.
Yeah, and being an outcast and having people he surrounds himself with in a much different way than Superman, or I guess I would say any other comic book character does surround themselves with.
One of
Who
my-
takes in more orphans than Batman?
One of my favorite lines in all of Batman comics comes from the Hush run, and it's Catwoman talking to Batman, and she says, for a loner, you sure have a lot of friends," which is the most true thing about
He's
Batman.
got a whole Bat family.
Yeah, he's a loner, but he's
to
got
be
more
the guy
sidekicks
who
and
is
allies than
Superman's
anyone.
best friend. That's pretty impressive.
Well, then let's lead it up to the best for last. I mean, you're the huge Batman fan here, Joe. Let's break me down, man. What do you got?
Oh, I don't remember not being a Batman fan. The first thing I saw was probably Batman '89. Every iteration since then and before then I have seen the serials from the 40s, the Adam West version. I would rent it every weekend. I would go to Blockbuster and rent Batman 1966.
Batman the movie.
Yeah, Batman the movie 66. Such a good version of the character. Yeah, I even love Batman and Robin, the movie. Every single one of them to me
Silverstone,
is something.
Classic.
I think every appearance of the character, from toys to movies to comics to video games, I have had an interest in ever since I was a kid. And I'm still reading the comics today, and I think we're kind of in a golden age of Batman comics right now.
Oh, I know you love Scott Snyder, the man who totally reinvented him in the New 52, introduced him in the Court of Owls run.
I think there was a time. Well, let's talk a little bit about the history of Batman in the comics, and then we'll get there. So
Before we get that, just to wrap up with your own personal opinion, just hit us, Joe, right now. Why is he your favorite? Why is Batman the best superhero on the planet?
because Batman, well, I don't know if he's the best on the planet. Batman and Spider-Man are my yin and my yang, right?
Okay. Right,
So
right.
you have your lighthearted, fun
different
adventurer,
universes.
and you have your dark, brooding, anti-hero.
Would you say your
sort
Dark
of
Knight?
character? Yeah, exactly. I would say my Dark
Wow,
Knight.
there you go.
Who still operates under a code of ethics. But the reason I think he's the best, and the reason I think kids gravitate towards him, and he's relatable, is that Batman has no superpowers. in a world where, you know, you can fly and be bulletproof and have X-ray vision and freeze breath and laser eyes. Like, what's your challenge? You know, but if you're just a man who has trained your body and your mind to the ultimate pinnacle of perfection and just uses your wit and your physical abilities to get through any situation.
On the line.
In my opinion, you're way more interesting. And, you know, both of those characters, Batman and Spider-Man, are plagued by tragedy, right? They either let that tragedy define them or they let that tragedy let them grow. And I think it's interesting that Batman is essentially like, you know, mentally stunted from the age of like 9 when he saw his parents murdered in a gutter.
Right.
Cannot get over it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that we have a character that people relate to so much that has let a tragedy define their lives. You know, I think his rogues gallery is incredible. The Bat family are some of my favorite characters in comics. I think he's just expanded so much more to the comic book readers than, you know, I'm the good guy and I fight the bad guy, which is kind of how I view Superman or any other character like that. Batman to me is about so much more.
It's not so binary with Batman.
No,
there's
it's
a
very
psychological
out there.
element.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you can't even really say that Batman is always the good guy, you know?
No, there are tons of really
But
great
he's
stories.
never the Punisher, you know. He never
No,
pushes the line
he always
that
has
far.
well, usually he has a rule that he doesn't kill people. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost always.
Yeah, which, you know, sometimes they break that rule or, you know, they do a universe where that rule doesn't exist. But that's kind of his guiding element is like, I'll push it far, but not too far.
Yeah, I have to say, like in Batman vs. Superman, even if they don't specifically say that he killed people, from some of the action that he does in there, I think he definitely kills some people.
Sure, but there are, you know, that's in a lot of the movies. Like you could even say that in 1989's version where he's just throwing people off roofs and stuff.
Didn't he throw people off roofs early on? Wasn't that his thing? I heard something about that.
Well, and that's something that, like, in the comic books, it really wasn't, you know, that moral right. He carried a gun. Yeah. I mean, the very earliest versions of the characters had a gun and purple gloves, and he was just a detective. I also think it's interesting, and it's worth talking about. Batman was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, right? Iconic duo. But I think more than any other duo out there, even, you know, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, without one of the two in terms of Bill Finger and Bob Kane, Batman would not exist. I mean, that was one of the most collaborative heroes of all time. Like, without Bill Finger, we wouldn't have the Batmobile, we wouldn't have the cape, like, we wouldn't have a lot of the famous iconography that's a part of the character.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're really kind of comparing between us four guys what elements make our Batman. We've talked a lot about the cowl. We've talked a lot about a sense of not killing, a sense of justice, maybe a young partner. A lot of that did come from Bill Finger, who was, of course, uncredited for a really long time. He now sees restitutions, which is fantastic, but for a long time he was an uncredited intern, essentially, in the process of creating Batman.
Yeah, it took a long time for Bill Finger to get the respect he deserved, and I'm glad, like, we're finally there. Bat fans have known it for a long time, but the general public, they just see created by Bob Kane or based on characters by Bob Kane. Now we're seeing based on characters created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, which is really important, I think.
That's good that they're finally giving credit where credit's due.
Exactly. Yeah. And in terms of, like, defining the relationship between, like, artist and writer in the comic book universe, that's so collaborative, and it's nice to see, you know, people actually getting what they deserve.
It reminds me of Chasing Amy. Like, oh, you just color it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you're not as important.
You're
like,
a tracer.
Yeah, tracer. No, your mom's a tracer. But
eat this chocolate covered pretzel.
yeah, it takes two to tango, not the chocolate pretzel. It's a schooner. And it's just good that, like, I guess when he was a contemporary, he wasn't getting a lot of the credit because he was an intern.
No, and I mean, we're talking literally in the last, like, 5 to 10 years that he's gotten the respect
so
he
it took
deserves.
that long.
Oh, and it took a lot of his family. He's, of course, since passed without ever realizing that he would get any of these accolades.
And that's, again, like, this character was created in the fucking 30s, man. And you think he's more relevant to 10-year-olds now than anyone else. Let's talk a little bit about Batman comics. Over the course of the last almost 100 years, there have been a lot of stories. Obviously, you can't talk about every single one in a podcast, but I think there are a couple favorites, or even if you haven't read them, but you've just seen the movies, you kind of know what stuff's based on. Do you guys have any favorite runs or favorite storylines in the comics?
For me, I never really read the comics, but I know there's really famous ones like The Killing Joke. And there's been a lot of things based off of that, if I'm not mistaken.
A huge background on the Joker, where he came from, written by Alan Moore, prolific comic book writer.
Which, let's just say, the Joker is like probably the most iconic comic book villain of all time.
When you think Batman, you think Joker.
Yeah, and I think of any villain, I think the Joker is the most well-known villain. I can't think of any more iconic than him. Batman, you can make arguments with Superman or Spider-Man or whatever, but the Joker, I think, is the most iconic villain.
And that's pretty interesting, Mike. I almost wonder if we've seen an animated version of The Killing Joke came out a couple years ago from Paul Dini, who was the incredible writer behind the animated series that we all watched growing up. I really wonder if that book in particular is going to be used for inspiration for the upcoming film Joker, which has just been announced by Warner Brothers. It's their first Elseworld. Joaquin Phoenix stars. Who's the director? It's the guy who did
Scorsese's
the Hangover
producing
movies.
And it's
initially a big rumor. Thank you, Jacobs. It was Todd Phillips. It is actually his producing partner. Martin Scorsese not involved at all. It is a woman who produced Wolf of Wall Street is taking it over.
Okay.
Some of that cred lost a little bit.
And to add to the animated adaptation that they made, got some, it was very controversial. Got a lot of negative reviews. Because some of the things that they added to that wasn't even in the original comic storyline, people didn't like it.
No, weird Batgirl sex plot. Very weird.
I never checked that out because I heard about that, and to me, that's so not what the book was.
Yeah, basically the opening
animation.
of the animated movie, I've seen a little bit. I've seen like clips and stuff. I haven't seen the whole thing, but Batman and Batgirl have sex. Then she feels bad about it and beats up some bad guy, take it out on him, and then ends up getting, crippled and turned into Oracle. So
yeah,
weird.
But that was a weird turn in terms of comics, because originally Alan Moore had written that book as a one-shoot. It wasn't meant to be the way the universe was shaped, but they let it sit. I mean, Batgirl was paralyzed and became the Oracle. I think it's interesting. Batman is a character without superpowers living in a superpowered world. They live with real consequences. I mean, she's shot and paralyzed. Yeah. What other superhero has had that happen to them?
And to lead into one of my favorite storylines, even though I'm not a big comic guy, but I did also like the animated adaptations of this, is A Death in the Family.
Love A Death in the Family.
Talk about a great one.
Yeah, fill me in there. I haven't read it. What's Death in the Family?
That's the Jason Todd storyline of Joe could probably explain it better than me, but
yeah, I'll give you a basic rundown of A Death in the Family here. So Batman has his sidekick Robin. Everyone knows Robin. Originally, Robin was Dick Grayson, who later would become Nightwing. His second Robin was this kid named Jason Todd, and Jason Todd was like a street rat who was a little rough around the edges and had a tendency to push it a little too far. Well, one day he's kidnapped by the Joker and is beaten to death with a crowbar.
What?
Well, they actually had a voting contest, correct?
Yeah, DC actually ran you could phone in and press 1 for him to live and 2 for him to die, and the fans voted to kill him.
Because he wasn't very popular as Robin, or because they just wanted him to die?
It was a big Reddit movement.
It was a push to get books selling again.
I mean, if that was made in the internet era, it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, if it was made in the internet era, it would have been a lot different.
I'll tell you, people saw him as a replacement to Dick Grayson.
Right. Yeah, and people were not happy with that, so they stood by it. They killed him, and he stayed dead for a very, very long time. And then A Death in the Family. A Death in the Family was essentially just about Batman dealing with the loss of a partner. There was A Death in the Family, which followed his actual killing from the Joker, who couldn't be arrested because he had diplomatic immunity.
Perfect Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah, it was insane. And then there was A Lonely Place of Dying, which was the follow-up, which was just a depressed Batman. Batman who had lost his partner and failed, and it was literally like Batman on the edge.
But then eventually,
sad man,
Jason Todd does come back to life, right?
Yeah.
Under the Red Hood.
Yeah, that was another great storyline where we saw
Red Hood.
almost like Bucky for Captain America returning as a
Right.
villain turned reformed hero.
We should also point out, literally came out as we did in our Captain America episode. Go back and listen. They came out within months of each other.
Yeah, very similar time.
I
Did
see.
he use like the Lazarus pit to come back?
Yeah,
to
that's
life?
exactly right.
That
Ra's
is how
al
he came
Ghul
back, yeah.
feels so guilty about what Batman is going through. He throws him in. Of
And then
course,
he
Jason
becomes-
Todd goes insane.
He becomes a vigilante on his own right, but has slightly different rules than Batman, where he's not has no qualms with killing people, but he operates as the Red Hood, and he has a red hood that hides his identity.
And this is kind of
see.
talking about the Bat family. Like Red Hood, a character now that's existed for a handful of years.
Oh, and has his own spin-off comics, Red Hood and the Outlaws.
And he took the Red Hood moniker from Joker. In A Killing Joke, you see that he was first the Red Hood,
Right,
not
right.
Joker.
wow.
So it's kind of a throwback to the man who killed him.
The only villain Batman couldn't figure out who he was, Joker used to say, before he finally revealed it was him all along.
Wow, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah,
Joker.
there's so much history with Batman. I mean, there is, like, the stories we just told were about the second Robin, not even the first
Yeah,
Robin.
think
Right,
about that.
right.
There's so many great legacy characters. We've seen people take over the mantle of Batman. Dick Grayson, the original Robin, eventually comes up and takes over it as well.
Some of my favorite books were written by Grant Morrison, and the duo of Batman and Robin is Dick Grayson as Batman and Damian Wayne as Robin,
Right.
Bruce Wayne's
Really?
son.
Yeah.
He's the current Robin.
who is still the current Robin.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
talk about fan not
Wayne.
favorite.
Yeah, people
I like
hated
it.
him.
I like him in the animated movies that they made.
Yeah.
with-
Well, you know what's funny is that they just, not just, like 5 years ago, redid A Death in the Family, and they killed Damian Wayne, and people were shocked. But they revealed that the idea was always to kill him off, and that's kind of why they introduced him. People were so upset, and they liked him so much, they brought him back, and he's still around
Yeah,
today.
that's
Well,
right.
we should mention that he's the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul.
Talia al Ghul.
Talia al Ghul,
His
who calls him
grandfather,
beloved.
Ra's al Ghul,
Yeah.
was trained by the League of Shadows, right, for a little bit, and that's why he's so good at fighting and stuff. And he's almost better than Batman in a way at martial arts and such.
But normies, if you're not a comic book fan and some of this is going over your head, just think about it this way. Jacob has not read any of these comic books. He knows this through cartoons and just absorbing stuff through the zeitgeist. So don't
that's
worry about being intimidated of the history of the comics, and there's so much backstory. It's all out there in different mediums. You don't have to read the comics to understand this.
Yeah, so when we're talking niche to normie, it feels like the normie stuff is, to me, the Christopher Nolan movies and the animated series. People have been reading the comics. I do want to touch on a comic storyline that's going on now, or just finished up, the Batman Metal stuff with the Batman Who Laughs. There's some very cool stuff. I was checking this out, actually, and it seems pretty rad.
Okay, so I can say for sure, guys, that I just read this. Joe, this is Scott Snyder. He's one of your favorite writers on Batman. He gets to do his own huge, gigantic event that incorporates the entire Justice League, Elseworlds, everything brought together, all wrapped around the Batman core. I thought it fucking sucked.
I was not a fan.
There are huge fans of it, and I think it's
Yeah.
cool. I think the Batman Who Laughs is cool. I think all the weird Justice League variants of Batman are super cool. But it's you could never do anything with that. I mean, it's weird and gigantic, and it's such a mess.
I just saw the artwork and like the way they brought in like the Batman Who Laughs and like all these different variants
It
of
looks
Batman.
cool.
It looked cool to me. I watched a quick comics explained on it. I don't know, but maybe for hardcore fans.
But can I ask that comic explanation? It is so heavy. Oh, Hawkman's magic metal has been creating dark portals on the other side of the world that creates dark versions of ourselves who have come over to take over this side of the world. It's like, what the fuck?
But they come over and they murk the Justice League. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people love it. It's just for me, it gets away from why I love Batman. And why I love
Grounded.
Batman is that is a grounded vigilante in a city.
Like-
He's a
Right.
detective without powers, facing off against madmen.
That's true. I guess that gets a lot bigger than that original premise. It's like the friendly
But there's
neighborhood
nothing wrong with
Spider-Man.
that. And if you're into that kind of stuff, there are tons of Justice League books. Tower of Babel is something you might love if you're into that kind of stuff.
We should say that was remade into Justice League Doom, an awesome
Right.
animated movie.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to go back to what Joe was saying. If you're not a big comic book fan, if you don't like reading comics or you don't want to follow the convoluted storylines, check out all the DC animated movies. They've been doing it for like almost 20 years, I think, and most of them are like really good actually. So.
And all of that stuff's going to be available on the DC app that's coming out soon.
Right, including Young Justice, our favorite.
Yeah, love Young Justice.
Yeah, good rapper.
My bottom line on it is kind of the niche to normie of Batman, quote unquote, is that none of it exists. Batman is normie. Who doesn't know Batman?
As a character,
Who doesn't know
there's a
everything
Lego
of Batman, I
there's
guess.
Bat Dad,
exactly.
the
There's a
Viner,
Batman for everyone. There's a Batman thing for everyone.
Absolutely, Colin. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think he is universally accepted as the biggest superhero of all
100%.
time. I mean, even more so than Superman.
Superman or Spider-Man.
Superman's the first.
But here's how I think about it. If you look at the CW shows, Superman has been featured in Supergirl. They have stopped them from featuring Batman on multiple occasions.
They have stopped them from people who even are associated with Batman.
And Gotham exists, sure.
yeah.
I hear that.
Young
but
Bruce Wayne.
Well,
you don't see Batman. Batman is
see
too
young
holy
Bruce
to
Wayne,
touch.
right?
And Jacob, David Mazouz is your favorite portrayal of Bruce Wayne, the young man on Gotham.
Yes, of course.
You constantly, obviously, bring that up.
So some other stuff on the comics that I'd like to talk about. Hush is a storyline that's kind of one of my favorites.
You are a Jim Lee head, dude. This is
I love Jim Lee.
Jim Lee.
Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb, like some of the best creators. But it has a lot of assumed knowledge to it, I guess I would say, where you're meeting Batman at a time where if you pick up that book and that is the first Batman book you read, it fills you in on his backstory. The first couple pages are Alfred explaining Batman's backstory. Perfect opening. It features almost his entire rogues gallery and gives you a history of them as well. It features Nightwing and Robin and Jason Todd as a corpse. Like, you get to learn more about that.
Right.
It explains Batgirl going from Batgirl to Oracle.
Oh my
I
God.
could not recommend Hush anymore in terms of a introduction to the Batman character. And I think it's also worth talking about a little bit of the New 52 reboot of the universe, where we had Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo making these fantastic Batman books that really brought the character out of an edginess, I guess I would say. They made
He's very
Batman fun
brooding,
again.
If I could have a maybe controversial opinion, again, not a big comic guy, but I am a big fan of the New 52. A lot of the changes that DC made with the New 52. Again, they made some animated movies based on the New 52 universe. I like the costumes. I like Batman, you know. So I was a fan of New 52.
Jacob, that's really interesting. The fans do not agree with you.
I know. It's a little controversial.
I was
but-
about to ask Joe to defend Jim Lee, your god, created the designs, the looks of all the characters for Jeff Johns' Justice
Wonder
League
Woman design was
#1, the
great.
debut of that. How do you feel about Armored Batman?
See, here's the thing. I don't care about the Justice League books. To me, that's not what Batman's about. Those are kind of weird offshoots. Like, to me, I love the New 52 Batman because we introduced the Court of Owls. We introduced Bruce Wayne as the heart of Gotham, essentially. And we, in those books, see kind of the legacy of being a Wayne and what it means that his family is a household name in the city. You know, like the Court of Owls goes into a lot of a history of a city that doesn't exist. I get how that could be a little out there, but it's at its core just a story about like a young man trying to connect to his family that's gone and do the right thing.
And to tie it into the movies, you do get that a little bit in the Christopher Nolan Batman universe.
Oh,
Yeah, you do see some of that. And the Court of Owls, I mean, it was the first time we saw new villains being introduced in a long time.
Right.
Oh, and they have lasted. I mean, a huge impact.
Yeah, and they're great. And Year Zero is another book written by...
Oh, you mean the book that created Riddler in people's minds?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
made
was
him
such a good
cool
book.
again?
Written by Scott Snyder, drawn by Greg Capullo, New 52 run, Year Zero. Couldn't recommend it anymore. It's the first year, but, you know, not really the first year. The first, like, kind of proto year of Bruce being Batman.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it. I like the New 52. So comic book fans, suck it.
Well, we've moved from the New 52 into Rebirth. Have you guys checked out any of DC's Rebirth?
Well,
Not
and
too
this is
much.
obviously the big comic book that we have to talk about for this episode. Guys, we just hit Tom King's Batman #50 in Batman Rebirth. It's the wedding of the Bat and the Cat.
That's right. I hear this is big news. Even as someone who's not a comic book reader, I've caught wind of this.
Mike, you would have to hear that it's big news It was such big news and such a disappointment. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I heard.
Tom King had to hire security for death threats at Comic-Con.
Wow. That's serious.
Yeah, I've read it. I do not understand the hate. In my opinion,
it's the ending.
Should we
It's not the
spoilers to
ending.
the people? Like what happened?
Yeah.
Why are
Okay,
people
so
upset?
here's a spoiler. People are upset because it is advertised as the wedding of the Bat and the Cat, and
Yep.
they don't get married.
Dun, dun, dun. It's
That's-
a runaway bride.
Yeah,
That's a
Catwoman
runaway
leaves
bride.
Batman at the altar.
That seems like within her character to do that, though.
Yeah.
Exactly, which is why I really don't understand why fans are upset. Also,
Yeah.
the issue itself is fucking gorgeous. It is told through two letters, one written from Batman to Catwoman, one written from Catwoman to Batman. We read both of these letters congruently, and some of the most famous art teams in the comic world have single page stories of Batman and Catwoman together over top of it. So it's kind of a weird issue, I guess, if you're not
Sounds interesting.
familiar, but it's very interesting. And that whole run, in my opinion, has been great.
Joe, I gotta disagree. I gotta cut you off here. Tom King, he's making a name of himself right now with his Mr. Miracle run. Just to give you guys a little background on him, he's an ex-CIA interpreter. I mean, he's got the stuff. He's a smart guy. He's been a comic book writer for a long time. The popularity that he's getting now and what you're saying with that old Batman run that he just did, it's got a lot of stuff like Batman and Superman switching costumes on date night to infiltrate, a costume party and stuff.
It's not even that's one of my favorite comic books of all time.
I gotta disagree. So here's why I don't like things like that and why I'm not enjoying his Mr. Miracle run. Is the appeal just that he captures monotony or pedantry through gods? I mean, we just see people, like, literally, there's an entire issue of Mr. Miracle of just them trying to feed a baby.
Yeah, I mean,
People say it's groundbreaking.
I like comics that connect me to characters. I mean, like, one of the things I think he's done so well, in particular the date night issue, is my favorite issue of all time because it is an exploration of two best friends. It is Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, who should not be friends, who are total opposites, but are best friends. And it's just the
Beautiful
two
women in their lives.
talking about each other. I mean, like, in that issue, like, it's not even to infiltrate a party or shut down anything. They're literally just on a date, and the whole time Catwoman is trying to convince Batman to just tell him they're getting married and, like, just talk to your best friend. Like, just be open with your emotions.
Wow.
And it's so difficult for him to do that the whole issue is just kind of them dancing around the topic. But I think it's beautifully written. I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of, like, monotony and stuff like that, but I don't view it like that. To me, it's more just humanizing characters that we've seen for, over 75 years. Like, if you want to read action adventure comics with Batman, there's plenty of them. Right now, I'm loving getting to see an emotional side to the character.
Mike, as a non-comic book reader, you said wow to that. Does that sort of normalization pull you in to say, like, damn, that is relatable? Because, again, like Joe just said, I'm a guy who looks at that and says, well, why aren't they punching an alien?
No, there's no
yeah.
punching. I mean, that whole issue is literally they're at a carnival, and Batman and Superman are arguing that Batman thinks if Superman threw a baseball, he could hit it.
Really?
That's the whole conversation.
See,
they
I like
have.
things like that. I have to agree with you, Joe, because it's nice to have a kind of an aside like that. But if you have too much of that, it can, like, you want it to get back to what it normally
Here's my
It is a
ideal
lot
of
of that. I would say that, but
Here's
there's
my
also
ideal of that. They're having conversations, but in the background, a serial killer is killing people. It's just like something. There needs to be an overarching of, like, oh my god.
I hear you, but also there's detective comics going on right now that has more of that kind of stuff. So the Batman book right now is way more emotional, way more cutting to the cores of the characters and how they relate. The detective comics has a lot more action. So if you're looking for action on the page, detective comics might be what you want to check out right now. But if you're looking to relate to a character, to see the study of, like, a lonely person and what happens when they find happiness, Tom King's Batman, I could not recommend it anymore.
Well, that sounds really fun. Like, I would kind of lean into the Tom King stuff. I like the idea of humanizing Batman and, why is he not punching Killer Croc? I don't know, but that's a very fun. It sounds like a well-written scene from a film. Like, it's very good character development. Just talking about why don't we tell him we can't. Like, I love that.
They're drawn like stills too, Mike.
Absolutely.
I love it.
It is, in my opinion, a perfect time for a new reader to jump in as well. Issue 50 just happened. That gives you plenty to catch up on before you get to the current run.
Yep.
And there's a lot of good backstory of some of the other Bat Family characters that I love so much that you can see before you get to the wedding. And now that she left him at the altar, I think we're going to be in a very interesting arc. It is called Cold Days. And the premise is that Batman beat the shit out of Mr. Freeze so bad that he made him confess to a crime that he didn't commit.
Whoa.
And Mr. Freeze is basically like, look, I've fought Batman before. He was going to kill me. Like, I'm scared of Batman now.
Wow.
And I really love that we're kind of exploring this, like, well, what happens when Batman is pushed over the edge? Like, and he's letting his life affect his role as a crime fighter. I just think we're going to see some super exciting stuff. And Tom King...
Take it back. That sounds fucking awesome.
That does sound fucking awesome.
Well, and the other hook of the series is that Dick is back in the Batsuit because Bruce Wayne is on the jury for the case.
Oh my God,
Whoa.
that's great. So you're getting courtroom Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. So Tom King's Batman, I couldn't recommend it any higher.
No, that
Hirely.
sounds
That's
very,
not even
cool.
a word.
Well, just real quick, just the last thoughts of this Rebirth era, Joe, just to ask you, do the costume design, this is a very unique costume.
The purple outline, that kind of thing.
The yellow outline of the bat with the purple gloves and stuff intermixed. Do you like that look? What's your favorite look?
My favorite look is Jim Lee's Hush Run or Bruce Timm's, not the first animated series, but the second animated series where they got rid of the yellow and it was just very streamlined. I like a clean Batman, but I like... For me, the movies, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they always have like an armored look to them, or all black and like covered up. For me, I love the idea of it's a guy in a cloth suit. It is a man in a cloth suit against the world.
You don't even like him having like some tactical bulletproof plating, just the cloth.
No, because to me
West
it says something that like he's putting his body on the line. I mean, like that's why I think the character is so inspiring and why people relate to him so much. Because you said Superman is like, oh, what people want to be, but to me, it's more Batman because he's like, I don't have superpowers. I'm still going to put myself out there. I'm still going to do this.
Batman is what you could be.
He's
right
the
now.
Best of our
If you
set.
push
there is
yourself,
nothing stopping you from being Batman right now other than like he has mental
Finances.
illness and you might not.
Yeah, no, I love that idea of Batman as a character. It's someone who is in a world of supers, not super, but he just has a super strong will, basically. Pushes his body, pushes his mind, and that's what makes him interesting. And a lot of this gets explored also in the movies and stuff too. Yeah. So,
and like with comics, I mean, it's tough. We'll come to our final thoughts here in terms of them. But my final thought is that I could talk Batman comics with you guys until I am blue in the face. We could do this for 10 hours. And we'll never run out of stuff to talk about because the character has been appearing nonstop since 1939. If you love the character from his appearances in movies and video games, but you're intimidated by comics, my message would be don't be. Dive in. Read any of the things we've recommended here, or anything that just interests you. You'll catch up. Don't be afraid of it. Just dive in.
In a world of binging, I think if you find a book that you like and you jump in there and it gets its hooks in you, you're going to just follow that rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, and the DC app is supposed to have a comic subscription attached as well. So you might be able to just get into this stuff right out the gate.
So there are some smart business decisions being made on that end.
I think
DC.
so.
Yeah. My final thoughts, I don't know a lot about Batman through the comics. I just like seeing weird versions of him when he's like in a trench coat or,
the Elseworlds.
Yeah, that stuff just seems fun. But at his core, yeah, it's a man who pushed himself to become relevant in a world of supers, especially in the same world as Superman, who is the ultimate being, more or less. So it's very fascinating. And yeah, I'm a Batman fan, and I want to check out more of these, especially the current run.
My final thoughts on the Batman comics are I'm remarkably proud that DC always seems to attach the top talent. Maybe that's playing it safe, but if you look at it, they go, Scott Snyder's the guy, Tom King's the guy. Every time they try to reinterpret him, I can just imagine what those pitches are. They must go through 1,000 writers. So when they find someone and it really hits, these recent runs have been hits. I mean, for a reason, and you gotta love it. It's not bringing down the character. It's not overexposing him. It's just making him better and better. Kind of headlining a bit here. It makes me wish he was treated this way in other media, like the films and stuff. So I'd kind of like to see some more of that down the line.
Well, you're obviously hinting at Batfleck, so why don't we just dive right in to the movies? Movies. Welcome back, Bat Boys. So we've talked all about the comics and the origins. Now let's dive into what I think people are a little more familiar with, the movies, cartoons, and TV shows associated with the Batman. To get us going here, let's just do a quick tops or bottoms.
Ooh,
your favorite Batman and your favorite Joker.
Well, real quick, I just want to say we've been doing this podcast for a minute now. Top or bottoms, kind of a segment we've been doing on this. Mike, you've been doing the music on this show. We should point out, fantastic music. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing it. I hope the listeners have been enjoying it as well. I gotta say, kind of thought there'd be a top or bottom song, so I'm gonna improv one here. We gotta do one, right? So let's do one live.
I'm a top, by the way.
Can I get a little background? Joe, like that? Tops or bottoms?
Fine.
Great. Let's hear it. Perfect. All right,
That's
so let's
great.
go. Joe, you were just saying to Mike, tops or bottoms?
Yeah, tops or bottoms. Top Batman, bottom Batman, top Joker, bottom Joker.
All right. Top Batman is Batman Beyond. Can I say that?
Ooh,
Yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Crazy
I love
answer.
Terry McGinnis.
Yeah.
A great addition.
Jacob brought the pop figure of Terry McGinnis right here. Got the Batman Beyond pop figure. Great theme song. So top Batman, bottom Batman is the one with the nipples. Michael Keaton?
No. George Clooney.
George Clooney
We got
had
the
those.
bat nips.
Because
Yeah.
it's,
Number 4 in that original
That's right.
quadrilogy.
Batman and Robin is what
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
called.
Tim Burton, that is.
Joel Schumacher.
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 Phantom of the
Loves
Opera.
his,
St. Elmo's Fire, I believe.
Yeah, classics. You're absolutely right.
He loves the camp.
Yeah. I like camp too, but I mean, I'm not a Boy Scout like you.
But so just to point out to our listeners, you are saying not a Bruce Wayne as the top.
No, I like
Terry McGinnis. I love Terry McGinnis.
I never really got super into the animated series, but I love the idea of an old Batman mentoring a younger, like, follower.
Terry McGinnis is great to me because it's basically like, gee whiz, what if Batman was Spider-Man?
I love that.
Like, it is perfect.
Yeah.
A
And
little
it's
bit
like,
of Iron Man.
I like the
thrown in.
sci-fi aspect of it, being in the future and everything.
there's a cyborg ninja, which really hooked me too.
Oh, and there's so many good tie-ins to the mythos before, and there's the great animated movie Return of the Joker,
Yep.
which is available on the DC app as well.
Right.
Which,
Of course, you got Old Man Batman.
yeah,
And that's great.
Old Man Bruce Wayne, I should say.
Colin and I put together a pitch a long time ago for a Batman Beyond movie, way before the DCEU was a thing. Still think that is ripe for adaptation.
I think that's what they should do. Like, scrap the Batfleck and just go to Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood as old Bruce Wayne.
Well, if the Joker movie
Talk about
does
perfect,
well,
Jacob.
that's literally what David Bowie was our original pick, but he was,
I
still
don't think
alive
that's gonna
then.
work out anymore.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood might not last too much longer either. I don't know.
Oh, way to fucking bring it down, man.
Well, speaking of the Joker movie, let me give my top and bottom on the Jokers. Obviously, for me, it's going to be Heath Ledger's Joker's number 1, and Jared Leto's at the bottom.
Mike, did
So
you
you
do the
don't like the
Halloween
Suicide
costume?
I never did a Joker
Okay.
Halloween costume. No.
Okay.
But I think Heath Ledger, he's just, rest in peace.
Unbeatable.
But
Unbeatable.
incredible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are my tops and bottoms.
What was your bottom Joker?
Bottom Joker is Jared Leto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, your Jokers are the exact same as me. Top is Heath Ledger, bottom is Jared Leto. But I
Okay,
also say
so
as a-
defend that real quick. Just the Jared Leto at the bottom. Why is he your least favorite?
Yeah, why do you
well,
hate
we
that
haven't
Leto?
seen that much of him, but I'm already, like, from what we even saw in Suicide Squad, I was not
He just
into him at all.
tires you out.
So you don't like the gangster.
To me, a good spin that they could save the Joker in that universe, because I do think they should save him. Here's what I would do. Make Jared Leto not the real Joker, but an imitator, basically. And the real Joker could be so much more, like, scary and, like, a legit Joker, and then Jared Leto, and then something could happen to him in that universe, and then Jared Leto could be like someone who takes up the mantle of the Joker, even though he's just, before this, he was just some gangster. Basically.
So would you want to see them make like Joaquin Phoenix the original Joker?
I think that would, make a lot of sense. I mean, if that, I don't know, I guess, is that Joaquin Phoenix movie going to be in the same cinematic universe?
Who knows? I mean, I think DC is pushing ground beyond what we've seen with the Marvel movies, where I think they're willing to kind of make Elseworld tales,
right.
one shots.
Looser.
In comics, we see that all the time, right? Like there's the Thrill Killer Batman, where instead of Bruce Wayne being the only survivor in the alleyway, Bruce Wayne dies in the alleyway, his dad becomes Batman, his mom becomes the Joker. No. We've seen other twists on the character. Gotham by Gaslight, which is an animated movie now as well, but it's kind of a noir-esque, Jack the Ripper is the villain take on Batman.
Right.
I think that would be fun for DC to explore some of these weirder angles. Like clearly they're not landing on their tentpole kind of storylines.
Yeah.
So
about Jared Leto, I mean, here's how I think of the Joker. Like, the Joker should be a foil to Batman, right? So if you think about Jared Leto is supposed to be the foil to the Ben Affleck Batman, I don't really see that.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane to think about.
But Heath Ledger to Christian Bale is like
yeah,
perfect.
That's great. And the Heath Ledger, I think, he's got to be the top. But I also want to throw in an honorary mention. If I couldn't pick Heath Ledger, I would pick the Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill, that's a really good point.
Such a good Joker.
That's true. That's really close to. You could argue between Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill.
Just the perfect voice. Like when I imagine the Joker speaking, I imagine Mark Hamill's voice.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. What about Batman's though? Top and bottom Batman's.
Yes, Batman's. I would have to say, my favorite Batman. It's really close between Michael Keaton and Christian Bale. I think Christian Bale was the best Batman. Michael Keaton might have been the best Bruce Wayne.
That's a great take, Jacob.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
And then my bottom would probably be Val Kilmer or George Clooney. One of those two.
Maybe George Clooney. I forgot that he even did that.
Yeah. He's the bat nipples.
Yeah, that's right.
So he was your least favorite.
He was my least favorite, exactly. But they had Alicia Silverstone.
But actually, my
film.
true bottom is Bat Dad.
Oh, wow.
Bat Dad.
Who was a Viner.
Yeah.
If you know about what Vines are.
Oh, of course. I'll go next. I'll tell you guys my tops. I'll hit Batman's first. I'll say Kevin Conroy, Batman animated series.
The one true Bat.
The one true Batman.
And Mark Hamill is his foil.
Yeah, I mean, you said, Jacob, the perfect quote. When you read Joker comic books, you hear Mark Hamill's voice. When I read Batman comic books, when I see that little smirk that Bruce Wayne does, it's Kevin Conroy, baby.
110%.
And, you could argue, come on, Colin, stick to the movies. Guess what? Mask of the Phantasm, baby.
Yeah.
It counts.
It counts. God, I fucking remember seeing that probably opening weekend. I mean, something you did not do a lot as a little kid.
Oh, no, but we were there.
Wide releases. Yeah, like, man. In bottom Batman, I guess I would have to go Val Kilmer as well. He's not as fun as the Adam West 60s Batman. He's not as goofy as the film deserves, considering Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it, as the George Clooney Batman.
Right.
Instead, he's just the kind of pseudo-serious, getting analyzed by Nicole Kidman's psychiatrist character the entire time. There's just not a lot of fun.
George Clooney Batman, he fits the movie that he's in, whereas Val Kilmer maybe doesn't. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And, I would say that George Clooney plays better with Chris O'Donnell, the Dick Grayson character, opposed to Val Kilmer, who, again, is kind of, oh, hello, young man. Do you want to move into my home with me? Harvey, I'm Batman. Harvey,
I'm Batman.
I mean, come on, it's still quotable. It's still great.
Let me ask you this, Colin: if you had to pick a live action Batman for your top, who would that be?
Oh, okay, that is a very interesting question. So I think that maybe. I've got these rose-colored lenses on when it comes to Michael Keaton. I can admit, when I see him in the turtleneck or the, as Bruce Wayne, or the, goofy latex rubber non-movable suit kind of just scowling at people, where he literally cannot move or turn. Like, what am I defending there? The past, right? It's the same people who would say that Adam West is their Batman.
Yeah.
Which Adam West is a great Batman. I'm kind of disappointed no one said him.
Look, I'll be honest with you. Ben Affleck fucking kills it. I think he's fucking great. And that's a totally unexpected thing. I think the movie he's in fucking sucks. I do not like that he kills people. I do not like that he just basically has, like, PTSD nightmares, like, the entire film and just, like, wakes up and, like, scared like my grandfather would.
That's Zack Snyder.
Yeah, so, but, you know, look-wise, when he's doing the little smirk, you know, saying, like, don't believe everything you hear, we got a lot of clowns in Gotham City. Like, Jesus Christ, and when he's flipping around doing the combat scenes in the warehouse, that's Arkham Batman. You know, he's got an Arkham Batman-esque suit, a Frank Miller Fat Bat suit. Right. I love all that.
Well,
So-
I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
Everyone has said great opinions, so I'm going to go with like some hot takes just to kind of like even it out
Let
here
me
a little
nail out
bit.
my Jokers real quick.
let's hit
Oh,
the
that's
Jokers.
right. Yeah, we
Yep.
haven't done your Jokers.
And I'll be super easy with this. This one I can defend. You know, not a product of its time. Best Joker, Jack Nicholson to me. People say that they want a gangster and that's kind of what they were missing in Jared Leto. We already had that. You know, he had Bob, the coolest henchman on the planet.
You know, Tommy guns.
He
and
had
stuff.
Tommy guns. He had cool hair. The coolest makeup effect I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys have ever seen an explanation for the latex pour that they do where he takes off the top layer of normal makeup to reveal the Joker makeup underneath.
So smart.
All practical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's genius. It's insane. And worst Joker... I don't know if you guys remember the WB Kids. Michael Richardson, an African-American voice actor, portrays the psycho Joker with dreads who wears like on the Batman animated series.
Colin, you literally gave all of my exact answers.
He is absolutely the worst Joker on the planet.
He's the only one that doesn't really own the role.
It's goofy, it's insane, it's bohemian. I'll throw it over to you on that, Joe. I hate it. I don't want to think about it.
Well, and just to follow up on that a little bit, that show, The Batman, was a lesser received animated series following Batman the Animated Series. The guys who made Jackie Chan Adventures, if you ever saw that cartoon,
I saw that.
were the
Same
ones
animation
who
style.
did the animation for it.
Okay.
But their take on the Joker was just kind of like he had like big feet that were exposed, and he wore a straitjacket that was open and like had dreadlocks and was kind of just like really weird and goofy. We really didn't flesh out the character like they did otherwise. I think Ben Affleck is the best Batman in the worst Batman movies.
Okay, yeah.
His suit, in my opinion, is better than any other movie. It's the first one to actually capture the spirit of the character, which is just a man in a suit. It's gray and not black, which I couldn't be more excited about. I have no idea why the movies just decided Batman had to be all black.
Yeah.
It's very ninja-like, though.
yeah.
But I get you.
Sure.
You got to give the respect to the yellow belt. Always been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always had the yellow belt.
The character was never in a costume that was all black in the comics, though, so it was nice to see him finally in a gray suit. And I do think his portrayal of both Bruce Wayne and Batman is the best. He matches his energy in both of them. Christian Bale, I think, is the worst in a controversial opinion.
I think he's a good Batman, but he's a shit Bruce Wayne.
And if you can't do one, then then you're done.
I don't think he was terrible as Bruce Wayne. He's not the best Bruce Wayne.
He just doesn't put any energy into it.
Really? I would argue
very
that he
flat.
does Bruce Wayne better than Batman.
Wow,
Because
'cause
I
of the
don't like
voice?
the voice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you're arguing that, then that also hits my point. He's the worst because people...
Okay.
A voice isn't a character. And that's what he did with
But
Batman.
he does the voice to disguise his voice. Like Ben Affleck has like a voice modulator thing that changes his voice.
I gotta say I don't like that either. So
Yeah.
what is
but the whole
solution
point is to
there?
is to disguise your voice so that people don't know you're Bruce
No
Wayne.
other superhero has ever been concerned with their voice. Peter Parker's not like changing his voice.
Sure.
What if he did?
and
like
we've
a
never
Latino
done that in
accent?
the movies before. Michael Keaton never did that. Val Kilmer never did that. George Clooney never did that.
Well, I will defend Christian Bale.
Do it with my dying breath.
Well, this is literally...
He's no Tom Hardy.
I'm just giving my hottest takes right now because
No, I wanna
everyone
hear
else
them.
has given the best opinions.
Right.
So rather than giving like serious, answers, I'm just giving things.
But you
that
think Christian Bale,
I would
because he
argue,
doesn't succeed at both?
Yeah, if you can't do both, then like you're not as good as the other ones who can.
Like Adam West.
Is
We've also just not seen as much of Ben Affleck as we have with Christian Bale.
very
Yeah.
true.
When people
Especially
talk
as
about
Bruce Wayne. Like,
Oh,
we've
those
seen
scenes in Suicide Squad, though. Oh, they're so good.
When people talk about like the Justice League or Batman versus Superman, like the highlight is Ben Affleck's Batman. When I hear people's opinions about these things, they don't like the movies, but they do enjoy Ben Affleck's Batman.
And I do think he does a good job, and I hope we get to see more. And Matt Reeves is supposedly making a movie with him, so hopefully that all happens because I'd love to see a solo Batfleck movie.
All right, but tell me best and worst Jokers.
This is tough again because everyone has hit their points. So the Heath Ledger Jack Nicholson debate is interesting. I'm on team Jack Nicholson.
Oh, really? A little closer to the comic book characters, some people have said.
Yeah.
But performance-wise, you do have to give it up to Heath Ledger. Obviously, the Academy Award winner. Both of them were nominated.
But like, Colin, you asked the question to Mike, like, did you ever do it for Halloween? I think that's a hilarious question because everyone and their mother did it for Halloween. So much so that The Office even did a bit where two guys show up as that Joker. I know people who did it like several years after the fact.
I know people whose kids now, who are like 6 or 7, do that version of the Joker.
But can you imagine?
Which is great, and it's a
Jared
huge
Leto Joker for Halloween.
If somebody walked up to me with like dentistry rubber gloves on,
damaged,
shirtless,
tattooed on his
with
forehead.
a bunch of tattoos out, I would lose my
Honestly,
mind.
I said that's my least favorite Joker, but I'm kind of okay with his look. It's just he's not used
really?
well. He's just not used well.
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say he's the best because I can't say that in good faith, even in a hot take. But Jared Leto's Joker is not as bad as people think it is.
Yeah. When he's shooting that gold AK-47 laughing in a tuxedo, he looks fucking incredible.
Well, and also Joker physically is not the end-all be-all to Batman. I mean, like, it makes sense to me that he would be sort of a trashy guy who makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that Joker makes me uncomfortable. He's saying weird sex stuff about Harley Quinn. He's unstable. He's shooting people. He has uncomfortable tattoos. Like, he makes people uncomfortable, and I think that's what the Joker should do more
Just
than
his
anything.
silhouette evokes
I gotta
that
say,
uncomfortability.
I liked his performance all right in Suicide Squad. I'm not a fan of his look at all. To me, he's just hot topic Joker.
Yeah, but that's what Joker would be now. Is I think kind of the
to me,
point.
it's like some fucking marketing executives like going like, oh, he should have like a smile tattoo on his hand, or like just the tattoo choices are just like very cringy to me. Like,
yeah, but the Joker should make you cringe is my argument to that. And also, I love the idea that like his teeth have been replaced because Batman's beating the shit out of him.
that is a cool
If your
detail.
teeth are
That's
gone,
nice.
I'll
That's
put
cool.
gold teeth in. I think, in my opinion, Joker's not my favorite Batman villain. There are other villains that I like more, other villains that I think are better equals to him. So I like that this Joker is a guy who just makes me uncomfortable. Who I don't take seriously, and that's kind of my undoing, if that makes sense. Like, he looks like someone you would underestimate, and I think that's kind of what the Joker as a character wants you to do.
Underestimate him, definitely wants that.
We should mention as well, we talked a little bit about Tim Burton's career with these films. He did have a pitch for a third one before being thrown off, Batman Triumphant, which would have featured Harley Quinn and Scarecrow as the bad guys. A Scarecrow-induced fear toxin Vision would have had Jack Nicholson return as the Joker.
And yeah, there were a lot of elements of that Batman Triumphant that would have been fantastic to see. But again, mentioned it before, the studio after Batman Returns was just like, man, you're too dark.
Dial it back.
You did too much.
it was in the wrong time because if that was now everything. That's what the way they're trending is dark and gritty.
That's what
it would have been. It would have been
kind of
perfect.
before his time in a way.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And, also there was the failed pitch for the Superman movie. It would have been the first shared universe in terms of superhero
Nicolas
stuff.
Cage, Superman.
Yep. Would have been all way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, people were playing with these ideas way earlier than they ended up coming to fruition. That being said, we talked about favorite Batmans and Jokers. How about favorite Batman movies? There's been a lot of them. Let's just hit it.
There are a lot of them. Here's how I kind of want to do this. Joe, will you just hit us with the list of animated series, the full movies that there have been? We'll go around, we'll
What's
say
out
our
there, yeah.
favorite. Hit a defense to us, guys. Let us know. We'll kind of debate it out and talk about it. Why is this the best Batman material?
Okay, I'm going to skip some stuff that was less successful and just kind of give you the biggest of the big. Their earliest that I think it's worth starting is 66, Adam West, Batman, The Batman movie, 1966, as well as the TV show. You have that. Batman the Animated Series, The Batman, which is another cartoon that was pretty big, Justice League Unlimited. In the movies, you have Batman 89, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. Then you have a little bit of a break. We reboot with the Nolan universe. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises. Then we had a little bit of a break. Now we have Batman vs. Superman, Justice League. You also have
A little bit of
he's in
Suicide
one
Squad.
scene of Suicide Squad. You also have the Lego Batman movie,
Oh, true.
which is, I think, the best Batman movie of all time. And Batman Beyond. I think that's all that's really worth
I think
hitting.
that's the big ones.
In terms
Yeah, if you don't
of,
talk about
of
every
media.
single DC.
Yeah, every single DC animated movie, which is impossible to hit. There's The Dark Knight Returns, which is an adaptation of the Frank Miller book.
Right.
Beware the Batman, the weird animated series.
Beware the Batman was one season. That's why I didn't note it. Like there's a lot out there. Basically, since he appeared in 1939, he has been all over other media forms, even radio dramas. There are podcasts out there. There's one called No Man's Land, which is literally just a radio drama of that comic book storyline put out.
Wow. That's crazy. All right, well, if I can jump in then and say, out of all the media, I do love The Dark Knight with the Heath Ledger Joker.
You're talking the middle one.
The middle one.
Of the trilogy. Of the
Empire
Christopher
Strikes
Nolan
Back.
trilogy.
Yeah, the Empire Strikes Back.
masterpiece, The Dark Knight.
The masterpiece, the...
Which is 10 years old. Can you guys believe that?
wow, I
I
can't
think
believe
most
that.
people or most normies would say that's the best Batman
Are you calling me a normie, dude?
No, because I agree with
When
you.
it comes to Batman, I kind of am, though. I never read the comics. I saw the cartoon and stuff. I wasn't that, but that Heath Ledger Joker, rest in peace, Heath Ledger. It was just insane.
Two-Face.
And that's just
come
the best.
On.
And
Also,
I'm a
I think
huge
that's just
fan of
Aaron
that guy.
Eckhart's
movie.
Two-Face
I'm a
does
huge
not get
fan of Aaron
enough
Eckhart.
Oh, yeah, he's
credit
I love him
because
in
the
that.
Joker is so
And-
good that people forget how good the
Overshadows
Two-Face
him.
was.
How well used he is throughout the
Leaving
narrative.
aside Batman, I think that's the best movie that Batman has ever been in as a movie.
And Jacob, that is exactly how I feel. The Dark Knight is the best movie to ever feature Batman. The Lego Batman movie is the best Batman.
I mean, people are saying it
interesting.
should have been, nominated for Oscars and all.
it absolutely should have. It's one of the best crime thrillers of the last 20 years.
One of the highest grossing films of all time.
And that kind of touches not on like fully the detective side, but it's a crime thriller.
It's way more in line with those elements. However, I don't think it's the best Batman movie because there are kind of typical Batman things that are missing from it. But it's the best movie that has Batman in it.
Joe, would you say it's kind of inspired by any significant comic book storylines? The only one I can think of is maybe Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale's The Long
Halloween. Yeah, that's the only
'cause
thing
there's
I
kind
would
of
say.
A murder element throughout.
Well, and there's also like literally Harvey Dent being accused of being Batman is another element of The Long Halloween. I would say The Long Halloween. I would say The Killing Joke as well, just kind of taking inspiration of the Joker could be anyone.
being a twisted, no background makes sense.
Yeah, and a couple notes on things I enjoy about that is like Heath Ledger directed those ransom films that he makes. Those are some of the most uncomfortable things ever. And for him to be able to keep character when the building didn't blow up, like he hits the button,
which is so funny,
and he just stays in
He
character
just
and
improvised.
fucks with it.
Another scene that he improvised.
Amazing.
Clapping in the
in the suit.
He starts clapping
Yeah,
at the
so-
police station.
Yeah, Heath Ledger elevates that film to become the best movie with Batman in it, as Joe put it.
Absolutely.
Without that, maybe it's not to those heights for
I
me.
have to agree. And just as a movie, it's great.
Wally Pfister. I mean, at the time it was
the cinematography, Wally Pfister.
Oh, it's just
it was the
Nolan.
most used IMAX footage at the time.
That's
I mean,
right,
it was
that's
shot
right.
on. I remember buying tickets to go see I Am Legend at midnight. Not because I gave a
Why?
shit about I Am Legend, but because if you went at midnight in an IMAX theater, you got to see the first 8 minutes of The Dark Knight.
Oh, with the Joker robbery
it was
scene.
the robbery scene.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw it twice in theaters.
What a great, and they set you up with the Joker's philosophy right there. Like he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. What doesn't kill you makes you stranger.
Yeah.
Right. And another great quote from that movie is, you either live long enough to,
Yeah, so mean.
that quote.
Yeah.
You either
That's
die a
kinda
hero or live
what
long
is
enough
that
to see
one?
yourself become the
That's kind
villain.
of what all, Batman is all about.
That's
exactly.
what you're all about.
And that's a great metaphor for Two-Face in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
That's
I think
true.
that is without a doubt the
There's
best
great
movie
parallels.
featuring Batman. Not necessarily the best.
And then
Batman
Joe, let's
movie.
throw back to you then because you said the best Batman movie is Lego Batman. Let's defend that.
If you've never seen the Lego Batman
not
movie,
I've not.
Oh, I recommend it.
you are missing out. That movie is about how lonely Batman is.
Oh, wow.
At its core, it is about a man who cannot get over the tragedy of his past.
The Lego's looking for a missing piece.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it might be the only Batman movie that's brought me to tears.
Wow, that's actually really huge.
I mean, it is incredibly moving. And if you're a fan of Batman, features every villain ever.
Wow.
Even ones as silly as Killer Moth or Condiment King. All of them are in there.
Right.
The Justice League is in there. I mean, it explores what the character is. And I think Tom King is doing this in his books right now, which is what happens when Batman can't fight crime anymore. Like, Tom King with The Wedding is kind of asking, like, can Batman be Batman if he's happy? And, you know, the Lego Batman movie kind of explores, like, oh, if Batman can't fight crime because all of the villains turn themselves in, then what is he? What is Batman without crime?
Yeah, a philanthropist, you know. That's pretty interesting. I have not seen it. I want to check it out.
I could not recommend it anymore.
Will Arnett, a fantastic Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
He's also great in Ninja Turtles, which we'll talk about next week.
Yeah.
It also features the Justice League cast and,
Yeah.
and supporting
Justice League.
characters. You get to see Batgirl
I mean, characters you'll
rise
never
up.
see
Yeah.
again in movies.
And
like,
other form of media.
Yeah, and like costumes that you'll never see. Like the Alfred puts on the 1966 Batman costume at one point.
Oh, wow.
It is so great. Like there's a terrible moment where Batman tells Alfred he means nothing to him. And it's like,
wow.
It's just so heartbreaking. And like I mean, even kids, like, because clearly it's a kid's movie. It's a Lego movie.
Yeah.
Like, they can relate to the loneliness that Batman feels and, like, how hard it can be to, like, express emotion, which I think, you know, a lot of Batman, like, thematically deals with, like, toxic masculinity and, like, dealing with asking questions of yourself emotionally that, like,
Yep.
you're not comfortable with. I just think that movie, even for a kid's movie, cuts to the core of the character better than any other movie out there.
That's a fantastic sell on that.
Definitely.
I want to watch
Check
that
that
now.
out, yeah.
If it's on Netflix or something, I'm going to check
It's on HBO.
It is
so
on
if you can
HBO.
find it.
HBO. Okay.
Joe, I think you just put into words what I was kind of turning sour on Batman just by saying toxic masculinity. Obviously, I've heard that term before, thought about it, blah, blah, blah. But in context to Batman, that is so interesting that I almost kind of look at him as, so what? You're the alpha male. So what? You can do all these things. Blah, blah, blah.
Smartest,
Yeah, but
richest,
it's sad
toughest.
in a way.
It's almost interesting that you're saying he can rise above it in a way.
Yeah, there's
that
a there's
he
a
just does
beauty
not
to that
reflect it.
character.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, he's a tortured soul. Like, I think recent books and recent movies have kind of approached that in a different way.
As a human.
Yeah, and the Lego movie, as weird as it is that a Lego Batman movie
Go figure.
handles this, I think they approach the core of the character better than even The Dark Knight.
You know, it ended up not making as much as Warner Brothers wanted as far as gross. Obviously, they're moving forward with Lego Movie 2. I would hope to have seen a Lego Justice League or a Lego
be in all
Superman
of that.
post
That'd
that,
be cool,
but,
yeah.
you know, bummer, who knows? But boy,
And my
I hope
other,
more
like,
people check it out.
Honorable mention would be Batman the Animated Series. That was groundbreaking for the time.
I think we've been underselling the animated series, really.
It won 16 Emmys in its time. Paul Dini's writer's Bible for that show is, in my opinion, required reading for anyone who wants to write for the screen.
Bruce Timm, one of the greatest artists of all time.
Yeah. I mean, it is really unbeatable in terms of the animated side of things. And they've made some killer animated movies. I would put Batman the Animated Series above it
Yeah,
all.
the Phantasm is
Yeah,
great.
we mentioned before, Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah,
Probably
it's
the
a-
queefest
Even
of all time.
Sub-Zero is another great.
Sub-Zero's fun.
Yeah.
So, Jacob and Colin, we haven't gotten your favorite films yet, though. We've been talking a lot here.
I would love to go next. I'll tell you, I'm flipping a coin over here between Phantasm.
Harvey Dent style.
Exactly. Between Phantasm and Returns.
Wow, that's really great.
Phantasm, I'll tell you guys, one of the things that I take away from it, again, I apologize, I know it is animated, but when that girl takes off that outfit and she's just wearing that sleek black bodysuit and has a fucking
I knew you
hook
were gonna
on her
go
hands, red hair, she is so fucking hot. It's insane.
They give you the old Metroid.
Yeah, we're
it's
sucking for
incredible.
redheads.
It's incredible. And you're totally right. She does pull the Metroid. But it's not. It's got to be Batman Returns. Batman Returns, you know, so here's a couple core elements of Batman Returns. If you guys recall the film, if it's been a minute since you've
Yep.
seen it, that opening scene at the circus
a Christmas movie.
It's thank you. It's a fucking Christmas movie. Is incredible. The opening scene where the carnival is sort of, you know, under attack in the town square, you know, by clowns and stuff.
Yep.
There's violence there in that Batman blows someone up. There's a lot of defenses now. People say, why is Ben Affleck the worst Batman? You know, so what? He shoots cars or whatever. In Batman Returns, he blows that clown up. I don't know. right? I don't know.
It's
like,
a lot
what is it?
campier when you watch it.
The way that film plays more with it is it is a cartoon. It's Looney Tunes. You know, that guy's not blowing up. He's just going to get smoke all over him. The physics aren't the same as modernality or rationality or realism. You know, it doesn't have that take.
Catwoman eats a
love that part
bird.
of it. Catwoman eats a bird. You know, Danny DeVito grew up in the sewers raised by clowns. It makes no sense. They're going to steal firstborn children. It has everything. Who would cast the scariest person on the planet? What's his name?
Danny DeVito?
No, I'm blacking out right now. Who would cast Christopher Walken as an original character, Max Shriek? Who just Tim Burton went on to say, "I did it because he terrifies me."
That's the bad businessman.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's just a horrifying character. It has everything. I just love it. That scene at the end with Catwoman, where she pulls her outfit off and Batman pulls his off, and Max
got
Shriek
9
says,
lives.
"Bruce Wayne, what are you doing in that Batman outfit?" I mean, it is like the
He is
greatest scene
Batman.
of all time. Exactly, Joe. You know, the first Batman film, they started shooting before they had the third act written. The third act of Batman Returns, it takes place underground. He's flying the Batwing in.
It's really
Things are
beautiful.
blowing up.
Yeah.
There's the gigantic, yellow duck that Penguin's going in.
Oh, yeah.
It has everything. It is such a cool set piece, but then to end up so intimate like that is gorgeous. I love that film.
Well, it also includes one of the first teases ever where, Catwoman quote unquote dies at the end of that movie. But the last thing we see is her cat ears perk up at the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'll be honest with you guys. Michelle Pfeiffer, look, I've kind of always said that, my
Was that
sexual
your
taste.
sexual awakening?
Well, I would say that, my types were always like Elvira or Miss Piggy. But look, I think.
And she's the perfect blend.
When I say Miss Piggy, what I mean is her. She is a blonde woman who is mean and gorgeous and has gumption. I mean, she is that outfit. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's Colin.
Yeah. I don't know. I love it. I love her. It's incredible.
It's
No, she's
perfect,
great
yeah.
in that, and with all
Michael
the stitches
Keaton,
on her
come
suit.
On.
I have to
first
say,
shot of Michael Keaton sitting in his chair and he just looks up and
Oh,
sees
with the
sign.
mirrors that
It's the
rotate to
best.
put the. He's
Sorry.
literally
Yeah.
just waiting, and that's the most. Again, that cuts to the character really well. Who gives a shit about being Bruce Wayne? I'm sitting in a chair waiting to be Batman.
I'm just waiting for the signal.
This is what I do.
And I have to say, that's my favorite of the Tim Burton ones, or of the early, of basically the first 4, I will say. As a kid, like I said earlier, it legitimately gave me nightmares. And it was just
horrifying.
terrifying. And I was like, yeah.
That movie was supposed to introduce Robin for the first time too. Damian Wayne, or no, that's not right. Damian Wayne's.
Marlon Wayans.
Marlon
an
Wayans.
entire subplot cut
Not
out
Damian
through
Wayne.
budgeting.
Yeah, Marlon Wayans was supposed to play Dick Grayson as a mechanic.
Car mechanic.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, instead of the Flying Grayson.
Yeah, who works it out
Yeah.
that Bruce Wayne is Batman by bringing in the Batmobile to the shop, essentially.
Okay.
But it was all cut. But the first, the action figure that ended up being the basis for the animated series action figure was the Damian Wayne or the Marlon Wayne's Batman Returns
Oh,
figure.
interesting.
Wow.
It's just got so much iconic imagery. I mean, when you guys think about it,
The umbrellas.
the umbrellas,
Yeah.
can you see the cat clock in your mind of that
Oh,
department store that
110%,
just
yeah.
blows up? I mean,
Meow.
yeah. Oh
there's
my
so much there.
God. Or her crazy little pink apartment that she just starts spray
when
painting
she's
and
back in her
stabbing
apartment.
things. I mean, it's got everything.
Yeah, it's very over the top, but it's so iconic.
It is. It is. But that over the top comic
works.
bookality.
Danny DeVito
is
with a big nose.
back in there. Oh my God.
Oh, amazing. I
Running
think-
for mayor.
I've watched that one the
he's
least.
Trump. Think about it that way, guys.
Oh, he's 100.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you look
Yeah.
at it through that lens right now, Trump grew up in a sewer with carnival freaks.
That's true. Yeah, I watched that one the least, but I think it deserves a rewatch because it does have all these images are coming back to my mind from when I was 8 years old.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Mike,
yeah.
I promise you, next Christmas, better than Die Hard, better than Lethal Weapon,
Gremlins is my Christmas
better than
movie.
Gremlins.
Gremlins is my Christmas
Batman
movie.
Returns.
But Batman
folks.
Returns.
But that's what I'm putting on rotation next time. Jacob, what's your favorite Batman?
Well, my answer is kind of boring. It's the same as you, Dark
It's
Knight.
fine, though. We want to hear it.
I don't know how you can say that any other movie is better than The Dark Knight, but
Well,
let me ask
it
you
comes
guys
with
this.
your taste, right?
Best Gotham, I mean, that's Chicago. By Rises, it goes to Pittsburgh. But, I mean, the Chicago in
Right.
Dark Knight looks fucking incrable.
Sure,
The
it
set-
looks like
something like-
Chicago.
I honestly like the Gotham in the original, The Dark Knight with Scarecrow. When everything's
That's
foggy.
a better take on
That's a
Gotham.
really fun Gotham.
Well, I
Because
think
Gotham
Go-
is a character then, at least, with the
in
narrows and all
Begins,
of
you
that.
guys are saying. I
Yeah,
cannot remember where
Gotham
that
is
shot.
a
That might be in
good
Chicago, too.
analog to Chicago, whereas if Metropolis was New York, then Gotham would be like Chicago,
Gotham is in New Jersey, confirmed in the comics, by the
interesting.
way.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I have to say, I did want to bring up Dark Knight Rises. I know it's Joe's opinion on this movie. I will defend this movie if anyone wants to bash
Contest
it,
you?
and then I will.
You think it caps off the trilogy?
You're waiting
well?
for someone to bash it.
Yeah, I know your opinions on this movie. I don't know about. I think it's underrated. I think people gave it a lot of shit because it's not The Dark Knight.
Because it's
nothing
hard
could
to
ever
follow
top
up.
The Dark Knight.
Sure. I'll go ahead and bash it then. You want me to
Yeah,
bash
I
it?
thought you
We'll
might
end
like
the
bashing
movies section here with a
Break
good old
that
bash.
movie's back over your knee, please.
Yeah.
Well, but let me defend.
Well,
it,
hold
too.
on, Joe. That's your least favorite over BVS or over?
It is a movie that ruined Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker and Batman as a character.
Wow.
It proved that Christopher Nolan is not as good as I had hoped or as I thought.
Cracking the armor.
By just making like a basic plot that people saw from the first trailer, and they had to swear up and down in interviews that no, she's not Talia Ghul, she's
It's
this
just
other
like
character.
Star Trek Into
yeah, and it was
Darkness.
like, okay, but we're telling you we know it, and your movie's not as smart as it is, or as you think it is. Cinematography drops tenfold. I mean, Tom Hardy's Bane is a good performance, but again, it is just a bastardization of the character. It's no better than what they do in Batman and Robin, where you just take a character like that and make him
I have to
a
say,
goon.
It's not.
Oh, I'm not done.
I'm not. Well, let me bring up Bane real quick because I had to disagree. He's not very comic faithful, but I think it's a good take on the character. And I don't think he's just a goon.
Fine. He's meme worthy.
Well, they just take.
a good point.
Yeah.
No, he's not a goon. He's a really smart guy.
He absolutely is a goon. He's a goon of Talia Ghul at the end. He didn't make up this plot. He didn't pull any of
No,
the
but he's
strings
not a
behind.
goon. He's still second in command to her. It's not like he's just some
Okay,
guy.
so the big bad
He's
that
the
we're
guy
following the
that's
whole
broke
movie is the
Batman's
second
back.
in command.
Well,
It's not
that's
really
just
all
like
that
Mortal
interesting.
Kombat. Goro's way tougher than Shang Tsung.
Yeah, but when Bane broke Batman's
Is Darth
back,
Vader a goon because he's second in command?
He is.
to the
yes, and
Emperor?
then in the last movie, he rebels against him and gets redemption. Absolutely, Jacob.
Wow, this is
look,
finally a debate.
better not say anything against Tom Hardy or his performance as Bane.
I'm not saying anything against Tom
We don't
Hardy.
have another
He's
hour.
Can
fine.
I just bring up a different point, though? If we're talking worst villain, it's got to be Arnold, right?
No, he's the best villain. Get out of here. He makes the most puns per capita.
No, Talia Ghul is the worst
I am
villain.
the biggest Arnold fan on the planet.
I'm the biggest
and
pun
it
fan.
embarrasses me that he made that movie.
Cool body.
some ice.
Every time I see him say,
it's great,
chill
it's
out.
great. So many ice puns.
Oh, it's my favorite. It's so
but I
cool.
have to say, Dark Knight Rises, I like it better than Batman Begins. I would say it's the second best of Christopher
I would challenge
Nolan's
you to
trilogy.
rewatch those, though. I mean, when was the last
Begins
time you
is
saw
good.
Batman Begins?
I
I
gotta
like
say, I
Batman
don't
Begins.
think
I
there's
like
a
all
weak
three of them,
chink in the
but-
armor. I think it's all perfect.
Yeah.
No, Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight
is trash.
Rises-
Great
Eh?
self-contained trilogy.
That opening sequence on the plane is so fucking good.
Is it?
I think it is. It's
Christopher
shot so
Nolan
well.
to this day says it's the most impressive and important thing he's shot.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
For you.
It's not as good as the bank scene in Dark Knight.
I
Which,
guess
like,
so.
again,
Oh,
If you like it, 'cause
if
like
you,
Game of
I know you shouldn't compare the two, but if you're going to open your movie
No, the bank
each
scene's
time with
great.
an introduction of the villain, you're begging for it to be compared. Also, just like they did with The Dark Knight, you could follow viral marketing and get to see those first 8 minutes early. It's the same runtime. They were begging for us to make the comparison. If you want me to make the comparison, one's
I like
way
both
better than
scenes.
the
I think
others.
they're both iconic.
Yeah, I don't know. I could talk about it all day. I think
Yeah,
that movie's
really
Mike,
trash.
vote. Do you like Dark Knight Rises?
I
I think it's fine.
don't like
Colin, you
I
think
don't-
it's fine now? When we saw that movie, you hated that movie.
That's a real Star Wars Force Awakens effect for a lot of people. That
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. Who are like, I hated it,
a
and now
lot
are
of-
like, it's fine.
No, I rewatched it. I rewatched it like 6 months ago, and I was like, "Wow, this movie is terrible."
Oh, still
Anne
holding
Hathaway's Catwoman is really bad, and the script is really bad.
Here's what I
the
think. Okay.
Clean slate operative.
Yeah, that's
like
pretty
it's
rough.
all
Here's
really
what I
bad.
think. People that don't like that movie generally seem to be comic fans of Batman. So
Sure.
because it goes so
I'm also-
far outside of what Batman is in the comics that maybe if you're not a comic fan, you might like it more.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst Batman movie, but I would also argue that it's just a bad movie. If when you make a movie that's going to have a big twist at the end and you release one trailer and everyone tells you what the twist is, then you failed.
Well, I didn't know. Again, I think that's if you're a comic book reader, maybe you knew she was Talia al Ghul. If you're not, you don't know who Talia al Ghul is.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have like more than 4 brain cells, it was obvious that she
Well,
was hiding
I
something.
like any movie that
Yeah.
brings Liam Neeson back.
I guess.
It's true.
And we get a sweet setup for Robin with Joseph Gordon-Levitt that's going nowhere.
I think
when
Which
really,
was some of the
first
worst
name.
writing I've
I
ever
didn't like
heard.
that.
Oh, that's a pretty name. You should use it, Robin. Teehee, get it?
Yeah, no, I've heard that.
That script is really bad too.
Yeah.
And to come from The Dark Knight, which was a really great script, is
I just have to disagree with all that. But
that's fair.
That's your
different
right.
people have different opinions.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Anyway, so
Now, kids.
let's move on from the movies. Final thought here: Dark Knight Rises is trash. Let's move
Tom Hardy
into
is the greatest
the
actor alive.
video games.
That's right. This is
Let's do it.
Video games.
So we've talked about what it's like to read Batman, what it's like to watch Batman. Let's talk a little bit about what it's like to become Batman, the video games.
Yeah, that's right. You know, what's it? The step into the cape, to wear the cowl,
Yeah,
to grab the
don it.
gadgets and get in there, right? Anyone have a favorite Batman game off the top of your head that you played?
Oh, there's been a million killer ones. The Super Nintendo Batman Returns.
That was very
Such a
famous.
good
I've
video
given
adaptation.
so much of my love to that film. I mean, it plays directly like it. But guys, what game are we going to be talking about the most today? We're going
I
to be
have to
talking
say-
about the Arkham trilogy.
Yeah, basically.
Let's be
Asylum,
Let's just
I have to
dive right
say-
into it.
Yeah.
Guinness
One that I
World
played.
Record, most popular, successful comic book game series.
Is that
period.
true?
Really?
It's the most successful game
About Superman
series.
64.
No, besides that, nice.
Sick reference.
Yeah, sick
Jacob,
rep.
what do you like about it? What's your favorite in the trilogy?
I've only played
You keep calling it a trilogy. There are
there's
4
of
games.
them. Yeah. There's
Well, we'll
City,
talk about
Origins,
that. Different studios.
Let's do that first, right? So what do we have in the Arkham series, right?
Asylum is the one I've played most, and it's probably my favorite. I have not played City or Origins, but I have played Night a little bit, and I do like Night. Night is great for its huge open world and everything. Asylum is just, it's great story. He's just, he's
It's
locked into
perfect,
Arkham
straightforward.
Asylum. Yeah, it doesn't need all the open world stuff. It's
It
just,
plays very much like an anarchy would read. You're seeing all of his villains. You're trapped in the asylum.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Guys,
isn't-
and what? Mark Hamill's Joker? Kevin Conroy's
Conroy,
Batman?
yeah.
It's exactly
I mean,
what
guys,
you'd
it's
want, yeah.
happening. As
That's
a kid,
true.
it's happening.
We're back, baby.
You're in the best universe that you remember.
And because you're in Arkham Asylum, you do get all those villains. You get, Poison
Killer
Ivy,
Croc. In
all
later
of them.
games, yeah.
No, Killer Croc's in Asylum.
In
Poison
Asylum.
Ivy's in
Scarecrow.
Asylum.
As
There's
you
those
walk
great
through,
Scarecrow
yeah.
bits where you're like in a Scarecrow nightmare and you're trying to
That's
platform
very well
move
done.
around and
You,
stuff.
as you're walking through the lightning cracks, and you're not Batman anymore. You're little baby Bruce
Right.
Wayne. Like there are a lot of really emotional moments in there that are pretty great.
Yeah, that's true. These games are like insane in the combat, the traversal. Like you got the grappling hook. You can, and even
All the bat gadgets.
the AI will freak out as you're taking out enemies in stealth. The AI will act more erratic
yeah.
because they don't know what's going on. Where's
Yeah,
this
you're-
guy?
you're
Yeah,
spooking
just
them.
drop
And
in on
look,
people.
that's Splinter Cell. We've seen those mechanics before, but the fight mechanics that you mentioned, Mike,
Yeah.
it invented those. The counter
Oh, yeah.
strikes,
And
the
that's used on a lot of
combos.
things now.
Incredible.
Assassin's Creed by
to do
itself.
that, yeah, to do that as Batman, I mean, that's what it's all about. Like you feel like you're Batman. You know?
You punch a guy, he bounces down into the concrete and
Right.
up back into your fist.
Yeah.
You are that strong in your badass armored suit. I mean, you walk through this game hoping to see the designs of the other characters. When am I going to bump into Joker? When am I going to see Clayface? I want to see how this world does it, and they do it perfectly.
Yeah, which was, I think, one of the most exciting elements. The one thing I will say is that Arkham Asylum drops the ball in the ending, where you get the venomized
the worst
Joker,
fight of
where
all
he's
the strong
juiced
clowns,
up
right?
on the
He just wants-
Bane serum.
Yeah, but the first game was critiqued for boss fights. You
Yeah, the
fight
boss
three
fights were the
people
biggest
that are all
issues.
gigantic
Right.
monsters
The
that
Bane
ram
fight
at
is
you.
pretty good, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
but
you do
it's
the dodge
same as
into the
Joker
wall.
Bane.
Yeah, it's the same exact
dodge
thing.
into a wall.
Classic
roll.
Toro fight, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
annoying.
But I mean, if you maybe the boss fights aren't their strength, but everything else feels like Batman, right?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, the whole
for
series I really cannot hit enough how much I loved it. Mike, have you played through these?
I've only played some demos and stuff, and I've watched playthroughs of them because they're so popular, and I want to see like
the cutscenes are so gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, what is
Gorgeous.
what is when Deathstroke comes to fight Batman? What does that look like? You know, I'm fascinated by that stuff, Poison Ivy and everything. So I think they look gorgeous. I've played the demos, so like the combat's very good, but you know, I have not beaten them or anything. But you guys have, I'm assuming, played most of them. Jacob played 2 of them. How about you guys?
Joe, we've played all of them together except I skipped out on Origins, so you will be the master here as the guy who cleaned them all out.
Yeah, I've played and beaten all of them.
But if I had to say my favorite, it would be Arkham City. You know, it's the perfect sequel. It lands it like a lot of things
Open
don't.
world
you know,
expands from an asylum to a city, right?
You have that
Yeah.
straightforward, perfect narrative storytelling of the first film. And all of a sudden, you're in an open world where who cares about whatever the Joker's doing again? Because, of course, it's another fucking Joker plot. I can stop because Deadshot's got a mystery on the side of the road, and all of a sudden, I'm tracking down bullets through buildings. I
Or
mean, that's
Hush.
incredible. Or Hush.
They
I
do
mean,
that.
come on.
I mean, Colin, I think you're right. Like the second one, the open world introduction, the side missions, you play as Catwoman for a minute. Like it really introduces a
DLC.
lot.
Yeah,
It is
they had
so
those.
fun. More gadgets, more open world, more skins to download.
All of a sudden, Robin's called in to help him on a couple missions.
Exactly. The one thing that I will say is that Arkham Knight, I don't really care for the story as much, but Nightwing as a playable character, Robin as a playable character, Catwoman as a playable character, they really expand
Babs?
that universe so much. Babs is Oracle at that point, which is
wow.
another thing that I
Babs.
think's
Wow, super
worth
dark.
talking about is that these movies these
games.
video games that feel like movies hit so many elements from the comics. I mean, you're seeing Azrael, you're seeing Bane,
Well,
Deadshot,
Knight opens
Deathstroke.
up with the death of Joker, right? And he's
Oh, yeah.
putting him in
Yeah.
like
So again,
incinerator.
is
and
this the
also Jason
niche?
Todd is a big
No.
character. Like you see everything.
Right.
That's what's interesting about this. If you look at Asylum to City, it's like your Smash Brothers 64 to Melee. Like the prototype is Asylum, and then City is the alpha, right?
Perfected it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and you can add these other characters, these other gameplay elements, and you can be the Batman you want to be. You want to do a side mission, great. You want to play as Robin, we have that too. And Catwoman, that's pretty awesome. And the fun thing about these comic book games is they give you the skins, right? Like when you play a Spider-Man game, you can be
baby.
whatever Spider-Man you want. You can be any Batman. What's your favorite skin in these series that they've included? And is there any that you wish they put in that they did not?
For me, they hit them all. I mean, I like the original design, like the one that they put in. I think it was
In the game, yeah.
cool that
It's
it was
so gritty,
it was
so
armored,
unique.
sure, but it was gray and blue and black. Like it hit all of the
Plating
notes that I
looks so
wanted.
good.
Yeah, I love the symbol. All of it was good. Batman Beyond is a skin, which
Oh,
is
that's
incredible.
amazing.
The animated series is a skin, which is incredible.
Do they give you Adam West?
Yeah, Adam
Oh, yeah,
West.
Mike.
I mean, like if you name it, it's out there.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
so great.
you want to talk about watching cinematic playthroughs on YouTube? Put on an Adam West version of it. You're gonna be laughing your ass off.
Yeah, just to see him like,
Yeah.
in that outfit, but like brutalizing people.
Oh, that's, yeah, it's really make it real.
And I would say the niche stuff in the video games is a lot of the like Riddler puzzles.
Yeah.
I mean, have you gone through all of those?
No,
'Cause
impossible.
they
Oh, yeah, I
are
heard about these.
Very, very involved.
Yeah, yeah.
And also in Asylum, they started with this kind of like you could scan an area and like find, like get achievements for unlocking codes and stuff like that. And they were all based on, like deep Batman mythos dives, like Bane's teddy bear from when he was a kid in the prison is hidden in the basement of Arkham, and like if
Yeah.
you scan it, you get an award.
I heard there's weird, like they go really deep with the lore. Like there's you see in one of the games the Ra's al Ghul's body with a toe tag on it, and then you go
Absolutely,
back
sure.
later and the body's gone.
And then in the next game, you see Ra's al Ghul.
'Cause he's immortal,
it
right?
really covers its ground.
How about in City visiting Calendar Man on holidays?
Yep, if you do it every holiday,
yes.
you unlock achievement. And like I think it's worth noting, because we're not going to get too deep into the comic or into the video games here, but a game that I'm super excited for coming out, Spider-Man PS4, would not exist without the Arkham series.
Oh, yeah.
That combat, obviously we're getting these detective visions, that a lot of these games are choosing to.
The
Witcher,
gadgets.
They have
cool
the Witcher
narratives.
sense, which is just as
Oh,
detective.
come on.
Yep.
In the combat of Witcher is definitely derived a lot from Arkham games as well.
Those
It's like
Lord of the
Arkham meets
Rings
Dark
games.
Souls, yeah.
Yeah. That's true. It feels like a lot of things were kind of toying around with this style of combat early on. Like even those
Saw
PS1
that it
Spider-Man
worked.
games.
And they said,
Oh, yeah.
this is it.
They were
Spider-Man
kinda there.
2, the
Mad
movie
Max.
adaptation, is basically
Oh, yeah.
Arkham
It's
City,
another game
but
that
Spider-Man.
does
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
similar combat.
But they finally really nailed it down. It's where it's some of the highest praise is the combat of these games, and it sucks that the boss fights are not some of the best stuff. But then
They
you
get
see-
better, though.
It's
You
got
see
a
that
couple other
Scarecrow
lows,
stuff.
though. Can we talk about in Arkham Knight? They throw in the Batmobile. This is something that people
Oh, yeah,
wanted.
yeah.
The
Terrible
controls
mechanics,
of this are
though, yeah.
almost unusable.
Yeah, it was very... And you
But-
need to do it for a lot of missions.
Well, yeah, for missions, but to get around the city, you don't necessarily because you can just swing around as Batman.
Sure, but
Yeah, I
all of a
never
sudden
really
you're
use
the
it.
Joker in the Joker's version of it, and you have to get out of a building before it explodes, and you're like, why am I ramming a wall? How
Yeah,
do I
it's
spin
very
this thing
difficult.
around?
So the driving mechanics are not good.
The driving mechanics were
It's
terrible.
funny because GTA is a big open world game, but even their driving mechanics suck.
Yeah. Well, and
But somebody's got to get it right.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, that it exists.
Mad
You're
Max.
asking for a lot,
for driving.
Speaking of driving, let me get real quick, guys. What's your favorite Batmobile then?
Not the tumbler.
I like the classic Mr. Freeze era with the 3 wings out the back and the jet engine.
Oh yeah. That's a
Oh,
good
my
one.
God.
I like
love
the
that.
Returns splits. The coolest thing about it, it goes through that hallway. Why would he ever need that coolest toy on the planet?
Okay.
Batman the Animated Series. Sleek, doesn't
I like
have
that.
bats all over it. It's not too big. It's discreet.
Not garish.
I like the Bat Jet or whatever. The Bat.
A bat wing?
Bat wing?
Different bat planes. And
It's
bat
not a
jets and
car.
stuff.
Is that the
Ooh,
one?
The bat, specifically.
Yeah, any of them. I just.
Actually, I really like the motorcycle that has the wheels that spin.
The bat cycle.
I made fun of the
That's
tumbler.
fucking sick.
The bat pod
Bat
is
pod
the
is
coolest
awesome.
thing that's
and
ever
it
been
drives up the
invented.
wall,
Yeah,
spins
yeah.
around.
Yeah, obviously.
People clapped the first time
Exactly.
that
I like
happened.
the Tumbler too. I'll defend the Tumbler.
But it's
The
such
tumbler's
a
fine.
film innovation. The tumbler's terrible. The bat pod was such a film innovation. Why aren't we pushing the limit with things like that? When you see the new Batmobile in these
the
films,
Nightcrawler from Justice League.
Yeah, I mean, they
I
are. They're
guess
just
you're
doing it in a
right.
different,
Right.
big,
Justice
dumb
League's
way.
weird.
X-Men not suing them.
Yeah.
or the
Nightcrawler.
Flying Fox, which is the battle carrier that they call
Which
it.
that they use in
Truly
Justice League, yeah.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind the Nightcrawler. It was kind of cool. It had like little legs and kind of crawls
I don't really care about any of that, to be honest.
What would Batman use that for?
to get around like
To fight aliens,
terrains
which is
and
what
stuff.
Batman does all the time. He fights aliens.
through
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
He's like at that point, he seems like a Spider-Man villain.
Exactly.
Like he's like a maniac.
Nothing is more
Like the
satisfying.
Spider Slayer
Yeah,
robot.
exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing is more satisfying than gliding around the city as Batman, though. Like, I'm hoping that web
With the
swinging
cape.
as Spider-Man has the same feel, where it's like, oh man, I'm fucking Batman right now. You know
when
what
you
I
can
mean?
hit that turbo, and
Yeah, and you
makes
just like
fly.
shoot up. It's so
and the new
beautiful.
Spider-Man does have a lot of similarities with the combat and stuff too.
With the combat, the skins, the gadgets,
They're
all
kind
of it.
of defining like the verb set that you use to make a superhero game.
It's an
with
Arkham
these.
game, and not even. I would say not even just a superhero game, but just a property. I mean, I think Arkham is the benchmark for normie gamers. Like,
Yeah,
you need to make
for
a
Batman.
game that's at least as good as Arkham.
That's true because it gives
know
you
it.
the combat feels good, the story's enough, it goes deep, and like, yeah, a lot of normies who don't like. I'm not a big Batman guy, and I'm sure a lot of other people aren't into the comics, but a lot of people played Arkham.
Yeah, and that's what makes the comics not niche. If those storylines are in these games
And
and
that
you're
popular.
unwillingly playing them, you know it. You know the whole
And they
mythos
might
of
get their
Batman.
hook in you. They might
Exactly.
get, who's Killer Croc? And you're going to go on a deep dive and learn about that character. It's great.
Which is exactly, I mean, to lead into the final thoughts here,
Yeah.
that's what Jacob said when we were talking about the comics, and he knew so much because he had seen it in animated movies and cartoon. The video games are doing the same thing now. I mean, it's all bringing Batman to a forefront.
So do we want to jump, go ahead and wrap this up, get our final thoughts on Batman as a whole?
On the Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight.
Let's fire up the Bat engines. And Jacob, what are we heading into now?
Final thoughts. In the darkest night, I make the bad guys fall. There's a million heroes, but I'm the best of them all. Yeah. Who has the coolest gadgets? Who has the tricked out ride?
So we've talked all about reading Batman, being Batman, watching Batman, all things Bat related. Coming into our final thoughts here, let's just go around the table and wrap it up real quick. What does Batman mean to you? What do you think of Batman? Mike, let's start with you.
All right, well, if I'm going first, I think Batman is a interesting character. He is a man with conflicting emotions. He hates criminals because his parents died, but he is just a man. He has no superpowers, so he uses his resources and his willpower to push his body beyond what would be considered normal human limits, and that is very fascinating. And it's more about his mental grappling with things, like his grappling with losing his parents and his place in the world. And his responsibility to Gotham, the city itself. So how do I be Bruce Wayne and be responsible for the city, protect my country, basically? Like he's a king almost. He's the king of Gotham. And how do I take care of Gotham amidst all these threats while also being Batman? It's really fascinating. He's spanned all the media, video games, cartoons, comics, movies. Somehow he's transfixed our imagination as a culture. And I just want to see more from it. And it's one of those things, the modern myths. Batman is our new Achilles or something. Let me hear the one when he fights the Joker, Dad. Let me hear the one when he fights,
Yeah.
That's it. Modern myths, and he's one of the strongest ones we have.
Yeah. For my final thought, I just want to say I think Batman is an interesting character, and I'm kind of conflicted about him because I do love him as a character. But I kind of like the darker side of him, and it's interesting because, like, for instance, if Batman was a real person, I wouldn't agree with him, and I would say, I don't think what he's doing is right. But because he is kind of like a psycho, he's like this vigilante who always thinks he's right. He works outside of the law. He has no oversight, and he can just has free reign to do whatever he wants. And so, if that was a real life scenario, I wouldn't agree with him because he'd just be some rich guy, vigilante. But as a character, I think that's really interesting because he's not a perfect hero. He's sort of an anti-hero.
He's
in
complex.
A way. Yeah, he's complex, and I like when he's in media that kind of leans into the darker side and explores that. Not as so far as like after Frank Miller, after his kind of his things, it got a little too much where like in the 90s and people were like, well, we got to top that, and it got darker and darker almost to like a crazy level.
Oh,
but
Joker had like a hand in 9/11.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But I do like things that explores the kind of like messed up side of his psyche. So that's my final thought.
He's a rich guy with a fetish for bats. It's the joke, right? Colin?
Jacob, I think it's really interesting that you said, would you agree with the idea of Batman in a real world? That's a very interesting way to put it. I don't think that's why I'm so turned off to him. I think I'm the person here who definitely is the most recently. Just as a character, I don't see the specialness in being the solo human being. That's chosen one syndrome. We're seeing a ton of that through all sorts of media right now. Every time I see the Justice League together and they're taking orders from a guy who's just dressed up like a bat, meanwhile some of them can turn around time or,
they're
conjure
demigods.
God. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes you chuckle. I understand that is his superpower at the end of the day, leadership, strategy, things like that. But it's weird to pull back from the ideas, the characters that have spawned off him, like you're saying, like Daredevil, or the Frank Miller-esque characters, or somebody so extreme like the comedian or Rorschach, and something like that. It's easy to look at them and be like, yeah, that is crazy. Batman is crazy. Because obviously they spawn from a lot of the fascist idea of what Batman is to extremity. But that's not who Batman is. Bruce Wayne is a good man. He's trying to do good. Like Joe said today, he is stunted. I mean, he is, talk about repressed. He is stuck. He is a messed up man.
He believes that he has the right answer and he's
and
the best
authority
man
and justice to do it. So
if he was a real person, he would probably be a libertarian.
Oh yeah, sure, okay, sure. And he's a multimillionaire, so sure, absolutely.
So he can just do whatever he wants. I don't necessarily agree with that.
It's hard. It's a hard balance. But the fact of the matter is that he perseveres. He is the most popular character of all time because he is a normal guy that you can look up to. And I do want to act more like Batman in my real life. So at the end of the day, I can't say I don't like him. Yeah,
but
exactly.
Also, to add on, like, for instance, the fact that, like, the idea that he could beat Superman because he could out-strategy him.
And that's the argument every time.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's Superman.
Right.
Yeah, but Superman's garbage.
Well, don't have such a weak will then, Jacob.
But in terms of his power, like Superman could easily defeat Batman. Let's be real.
But that's Tower Babel, and you know.
Well, we've already
it's the
seen that
argument
movie.
Everybody's done.
Luckily, their mothers have the same name. Joe, well, you're the one who got us on this journey. This is one of your babies, Spider-Man and Batman, right?
Yeah, so just to wrap it up here, final thoughts. Superheroes are the new American gods.
That's right.
They are our version of Greek mythology, and Batman is just a regular man who's hoisted up there with him. I think that's important. I think the character, if you're 4 years old and you like punching bad guys, if you're in your 50s and you're worried about what your place is in the world and where you're going to go after you retire, there's something for everyone in between those two scopes for Batman as a character. He asks tough questions of readers who want to dive into the mythology and the mental aspects of the character, but he's also one of the most inspiring out there. I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, my older brother told me one time, like, what would Batman do? Just think what Batman would do. It's something I think of all the time. At the bottom line is he's just a man who uses everything he has to be better and to elevate himself. And I think there's something inspiring about that, something that people relate to, which is why he's one of the most popular characters of all time. I've loved talking all about him with you guys. Could talk about him all day, from the movies to the comics to the video games and everything in between. One little recommendation before we get out of here. Batman White Knight, if you haven't read that, it's a look at the character and his relationship with the Joker that you might be interested in. It's kind of like what would happen if the Joker got reformed. So I think that's something that, if you're a longtime reader or just a casual viewer.
His identity in that one as well, right?
Yeah, it's a very interesting read. And whether you've been a fan of the character forever or you're just trying to get into it, it's kind of an Elseworld book, so it's a good place to jump into the character and kind of explore some of these deeper themes that we've talked about. But with that, I think it's time to go ahead and get out of here, head back to the Batcave and relax a little bit. I've been Joe.
Bam pow, this is Colin.
This is Mike.
Fuck Batman. This is Jacob, a.k.a. Robin.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Here's something for your
Normies
brain.
like
Here's
us.
something for your brain post credits, Normies. Remember that Batman is responsible for every murder Joker ever does because he won't kill him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so think about that. Bye.
Well, well. We've come a long way from the Prime Minister's exploding cake. Or have we?